run with this idea that it's a Goldilocks period for asset prices, not labour. There's two things I think that go wrong that potentially upset this. One is, in the short term, a fear in the markets that inflation is starting to return or is just around the corner, or indeed that central banks themselves may start to try and actually actively target higher inflation. Don't forget we've got policy reviews by the Fed, but also the ECB this year. So a fear of a return to inflation would be the short-term thing that would be most likely, I think, to spook financial markets. Don't think it's particularly likely myself. Which leads me to the second thing, which is over the longer term, you get a continued period of very low interest rates, accommodative monetary policy. We're already 10 years into this very, very period of very, very loose monetary policy. At some point, we're putting a lot of faith in markets to allocate capital efficiently. And I think at some point something breaks because there's a bubble in Chinese property, in US car loans, in leveraged loans, whatever it is. We all know the familiar points of potential stress. But at some point something breaks and we get another asset price collapse. And we know from the last two downturns that it's asset price falls that cause the big economic problems.
So Neil, we know that this Fed has no appetite to do anything with rates to tackle this issue. Are we going to hear a whole lot more about macro-prudential policy in America?
I suspect we will, and I suspect. I mean, we're doomed in this sense. I think to keep fighting yesterday's battles. Macroeconomic policy will be targeted. Macroprudential policy will be targeted in terms of preventing another housing bubble. And I suspect the next problems won't be in the housing market; they'll be somewhere else.
Give us an idea.
So corporate debt would be the first place I would look at. Corporate credit spreads are incredibly narrow now, close to the lows that we saw in the run-up to the 2008 crisis. We've had even the IMF sounding off about the risks in leveraged loans, a small part of the market that could go wrong. Chinese property, that's the place. I mean, if you're looking for black swan events from the coronavirus, property sales in China have collapsed, and it's the one part of the economy that's extremely over-leveraged. Developers in particular look vulnerable.
Yeah.
So that could be the next black swan.
When you talk about the corporate debt market, we did get a warning from the Federal Reserve last week. They said that they were going to increase their stress test parameters, particularly for leveraged loans, as well as corporate debt more broadly. So it does seem like that is an area of concern. But going back to the real economy, I'm wondering what could tip the scales with respect to earnings, with respect to the fundamentals that actually causes some sort of default cycle that we really haven't seen.
Well, there's nothing on the horizon at the moment. If you think about previous substantial economic downturns, what's caused them? Inflation shocks warranting policy tightening by central banks. As we just discussed, the Fed looks like it's happy to sit on the sidelines for now. Big fiscal contractions because there's a budget crisis. That doesn't look particularly likely. The bond markets look like they're tolerant of high levels of debts and deficits at the moment. Oil price shocks, again, that doesn't look particularly likely on the horizon. And then asset price collapses. And at the moment, particularly if you look at housing, which is the big one, it doesn't look cheap, but it doesn't look very expensive, so it doesn't look like a bubble. So it's difficult when you scan the horizon right now, I think, to see the obvious signs that something's fermenting on the horizon. But I think you run the clock forward 12, 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, and I think those risk factors will start to return.
And Neil, before we let you go, just one quick final question. Day 2 for the Federal Reserve Chairman. Anything left for you to ask the Fed Chair? What would you like to hear today?
What I really want to hear is, we know the Fed has this 2% inflation target and full employment. How real is that? What are they really targeting? Are they going to tolerate much higher rates of inflation? Because we know that in a world where where interest rates rather are at their effective lower bound, a period of deflation is a much bigger risk. So do they try and tip the balance the other way, start tolerating or even targeting higher rates of inflation, either explicitly or implicitly? And that has a big implication on particular bond markets, but also other things, other assets too.
Neil, that's brilliant. Are we going to have an implicit monetary policy guessing future inflation?
Yeah, we may well do, because of course this policy review won't change the Fed's mandate, nor will the policy review in the ECB change its mandate. I don't suspect, but it could be, like you say, it's implicit that the Fed actually says, you know what, we're going to allow the economy to run a bit hot for a while. We're going to, because we actually want inflation and inflation expectations to be higher, because we know that if we've got rates at 1.5–2%, there's not much room for us to cut them if the economy does turn bad.
Yeah.
Neil, great to catch up with you this morning. Neil Shearing there, Capital Economics Chief Economist. Day 2 on Capitol Hill for the Federal Reserve Chair in front of the Senate Banking Committee a little bit later.
Okay, if he gets a Lisa Bramowitz more serious question, I mean, what's he going to say about inflation? We're going to get the data tomorrow, right, John?
We're going to get CPI tomorrow.
I looked this morning. Service sector inflation is killing us. I mean, tuition, food, camps. Can we talk about summer camps?
How much is summer camp
What
costing?
a
ridiculous.
racket.
Oh my gosh.
See how her voice changes? She knows.
It's just offensive.
Is now the time that you choose your summer camp?
Of course it is.
Of course you do. You have to decide now.
Deposit down?
Yes.
How much does it cost?
It used to be like, Dad, can I go another week? It's $189. I don't know. And now it's like, it's like tuition.
Of dollars. Yeah. Well, meanwhile, I'm looking at the five-year break-even forwards, and it's still well under.
Is a breakdown.
It's a breakdown.
Yeah. Transition. Carry on.
Well, no, I'm just talking about the Fed's model. They're looking for inflation, and the market is looking for inflation.
Where is it?
I'm looking for something to sort of soothe my nerves.
I'm going to get you some news from New York City, headlines worldwide. Here's Michael Barr. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, John, Tom, Lisa. Bernie Sanders has been declared the winner in the New Hampshire primaries. Sanders told his supporters in Manchester that his win marks the beginning of the end for Donald Trump.
We're going to Nevada. We're going to South Carolina. We're going to win those states as well.
Pete Buttigieg was second. Amy Klobuchar talked about her third-place finish to her supporters.
Well, there are still ballots left to count. We have beaten the odds every step of the way.
Elizabeth Warren was fourth. Vice President Joe Biden has moved on to South Carolina after a disappointing fifth-place finish. Biden spoke at the campaign event in Columbia last night, pointing out that the support of black voters is critical to winning the party's presidential nomination.
Your loyalty, your support, your commitment to this party have been taken for granted. I have never once in my career since I got involved as a kid taken it for granted. And I give you my word as a Biden, I never, ever, ever will.
The fallout continues after a Department of Justice reversal in the sentencing recommendation for Trump confidant Roger Stone. Prosecutors had recommended 7 to 9 years for Stone's 7-count conviction in the Robert Mueller investigation. But just 24 hours later, and after criticism from President Trump, the Justice Department called that sentencing request, quote, extreme and excessive. The DOJ recommended 3 to 4 years. Siba, a standard poodle, was selected as best in show at the 144th edition of the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show in New York last night. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and on quick take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. John, Tom, Lisa.
At least it wasn't a miniature poodle, a standard poodle. They're like a duck dog.
Oh, you're
they're
happy
like a
that
serious
it's
dog.
A standard poodle. They're big.
They're not like a yap-yap.
No, they're
it's
big
like
dogs.
a real dog. Yeah,
I agree. I don't like them, but they're big
duck
dogs.
Dog.
Are you getting another dog?
Oh, it's under discussion.
Really?
Vet Bill's lonely. Yeah, we would get another one like Vet Bill.
Another, but like Vet Bill.
Yeah, I think, matching. A brace.
Matching Tiffany collars.
Yeah. Oh, no, we'd probably go with the other one,
I'd
the black
love
one.
to see you going through Central Park with two little white dogs with matching Tiffany collars.
No one would ever do that.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance Live on Bloomberg Radio.
This is your Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. The old security deposit thing is finally getting disrupted.
There's no other industry today left other than housing where you're still paying by check. You're still putting up cash deposits. I mean, this is just one of these old antiquated markets.
Ankur Jain is co-founder and chairman of Rhino. His company sells insurance to tenants that helps renters avoid having to pay down payments.
When you rent a car, you pay your $20 a day to Hertz, but you don't put up a $20,000 cash deposit in case you get into an accident. you have insurance. So we just took that concept and applied it to housing.
Cincinnati is among the metros passing renters' choice laws this year that allow tenants to buy security deposit insurance instead of putting down a deposit. And local lawmakers in Alabama, Connecticut, Maryland, and North Carolina are among the others looking at alternatives to down payments for renters. Skeptics say, watch to see how it goes in Cincinnati first. And that's your Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Switch to 5G on Vodafone. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G by March 8th and get wireless Galaxy Buds Plus for free. With unlimited 5G data, you can post 108 megapixel photos and download videos impossibly fast, all on the UK's best mobile data network. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
5G subject to coverage in your area. MPerf test awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance. Minimum term applies. See vodafone.co.uk.
This is our story. The Birds of Prey. Roman is building an army. He's after all of us. We gotta clean the city from the inside out.
Critics are saying Margot Robbie is brilliant as Harley Quinn.
Hi, boys.
Birds of Prey is a fantastic assault on the senses. Brilliantly acted and very funny. 4 stars. Birds of Prey in cinemas now. Certificate 15.
One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
Sign up to Walk All Over Cancer with Cancer Research UK. Walk 10,000 steps every day in March and help raise money for life-saving research.
Are you ready, Boots?
It's a sunny day, perfect for walking.
Start walking.
Use the 10,000 Steps a Day Challenge to team up and bring friends and family together to help beat cancer. Come on, search Walk All Over Cancer and sign up now.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. U.S. futures gaining this morning along with European shares. Crude oil is rallying amid signs the spread of the coronavirus in China is slowing. And investor optimism the global economy can weather the storm. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 13 points this morning. Dow futures up 138 and NASDAQ futures up 44. The DAX in Germany's up 0.8%. 10-year Treasury down 6/32, yield 1.62%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.43%. NYMEX crude oil up 2.2% or $1.11 to $51.05 a barrel. COMEX gold is down about 0.1% on $1 to $15.69 an ounce. The euro 1.0912 against the dollar. British pound 1.2974 and the yen at 109.98. Watching shares of CVS this morning and unveiled a series of management changes, including appointing a new chief for its pharmacy benefit management business as the health giant absorbs insurer Aetna, its biggest ever acquisition, and makes over more of its drugstores. Its shares are up about 2%. And sources tell Bloomberg Marathon Petroleum Speedway gas station division has drawn interest from potential buyers, including the owner of convenience store chain 7-Eleven, as well as TDR Capital. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
Good morning, everyone. Lisa Bramwitz and Tom Keaton. And now we go where few want to go, the opaqueness of the Japanese and investment worldwide. And this is, of course, Mr. Sun and SoftBank in what they own, what they don't own, etc. And joining us now, Alex Webb, to translate here on Sprint. Okay, Alex, can you help us out with how SoftBank got involved with Sprint in the first place?
So Sprint was a majority stake, I think, was acquired by SoftBank going on for a decade ago now.
Yeah, like forever ago.
Yeah, and we've had a constant on and off discussion over much of the subsequent decade. Are they going to team up with T-Mobile, as it subsequently became known? And most importantly, who was going to be the senior partner? Finally, that deal is reaching its... Well, the deal was agreed 2 years ago now, but it looks like it's finally going to complete.
Are they going to reprice the deal? I mean, Lisa and I were sitting here doing the calculus on this. I mean, the deal was done forever ago. T-Mobile, up. Sprint's been a train wreck from day one. Do they need to reprice those important ratios in the transaction?
I don't think so. I think that ship has sailed. The two companies putting out statements today saying that they expect it to complete by the start of April now. So, maybe in Deutsche Telekom, which is, the biggest shareholder in T-Mobile's interest to somehow reprice the deal. But, its stock is also up on the prospect of this deal closing. It is the biggest cash cow for Deutsche Telekom, which is Europe's largest mobile operator.
Right now, just looking at Sprint pre-market, down a little bit, but yesterday shares surged 77%, which is just shocking for a company of that size. Meanwhile, we've got the real focus on SoftBank's earnings came out overnight, and there is a question just about their governance structure, how the relationship is going to be with Elliott Management, which just took an important purchase of shares in SoftBank. But really, for a lot of investors, the focus is on the Vision Fund, which has been one of the biggest drivers of valuations in Silicon Valley. It posted a loss, a $2 billion loss in the quarter. How big of a deal is this at a time when there are a lot of questions about the WeWorks and some of the other companies, Airbnb, which is going to IPO later this year and had a loss in the fourth quarter?
Well, I think this fundamentally gets to Elliott's problem with SoftBank. So Elliott, having now taken a $3 billion stake, its sort of view is that the Vision Fund is actually a very small part of SoftBank's actual business, and yet it consumes 100% of the oxygen. That whenever we talk about SoftBank, we seldom mention its name without mentioning the Vision Fund in the same breath. In reality, the most of its valuation comes from its stake in Alibaba. It also has publicly listed stakes in its sort of eponymous carrier in Japan. SoftBank is its own mobile carrier in Japan. It also has stakes in, Arm and a bunch of other companies. And the value of those stakes is perhaps $270 billion. That is significantly more than the equity value of SoftBank itself. And yet, one of the reasons for that discount is actually because people look at the hiccups and the snafu of WeWork, and they think, oh my goodness, this company has serious corporate governance issues. What more aren't they telling us?
And how the Elliott people are listening. We thank them for listening all the time. Great, Alex. Do they have any transparency on this massively opaque company? I mean, does anybody really know what SoftBank's accounting is?
No, and that's why, presumably someone inside SoftBank does, we'd hope, but ultimately that is one of the things that they're also complaining about.
Oh, come on, the good will, the bad will, the Alex Webb will, whatever you want to call it. Does anybody really understand the intangibles involved here?
It's certainly a big ask. One of the criticisms is that a lot of the people within SoftBank are people who came out of Deutsche Bank and were responsible for structuring a lot of the financial products they had in the run up to the crisis. And people have been quick to draw comparisons between the two. That's why Elliott is asking for better transparency, and I think it's an entirely fair demand. There is one criticism is that, for argument's sake, it's not quite clear that they do this, but an allegation is that they, you invest in a company when it's valued at $1 billion and you throw in $200 million. And 18 months later, you invest in the same company at a $4 billion valuation, but you only throw in $50 million. All of a sudden, that $150 million valuation or $150 million investment has become perhaps $450 million in book value. And that's pretty hard. Now, SoftBank will defend this by saying, well, there are other investors who invest at the same valuation at a later date, but it doesn't always smell right. And that seems to have perhaps come unstuck in some of these investments, not least WeWork. Yeah. And Elliott's saying, why don't you just concentrate on the main business, use your capital to do buybacks in order to underpin the value of the publicly traded stock that you have in Japan, and that's a far better way of generating returns for your existing investor base.
Tom, I'll just throw this out. The unrealized gain on investments at the Vision Fund shrank to $5.2 billion, which is less than a third of the paper profit that SoftBank reported 6 months ago.
Alex Webb, thank you so much. Convoluted thing, and all we know, folks. I'm sorry I asked the sophisticated question. It was beneath Alex Webb's need to answer it. It was too simple for Alex. Is our phone bill going up? There were 4 players, and now there's 3. Is our phone bill going up? That's all I want to know. I actually did some research yesterday after John raised the good point about how much cheaper bills were in the UK and why they're so much more expensive in the US. And A, they have been coming down in the US. Yes. But B, the taxes on the bills have been going up a lot. So a significant proportion of the fees really have to do with taxes. That's like flying into Heathrow. I mean, like 98% of some of these plane flights into Heathrow are the taxes. I mean, you look at it. You look at the breakdown of taxes and fees. I'm going into Stansted on the Gulf Stream, but can I just say something? Please. This is important. 2 days ago, this complete uproar over the record speed of the British Air plane going over. Yeah. Did anybody talk about when you fly back from London and you feel like you're leaving Warsaw, Poland, because the wind is beating you up and it takes like 9 or 10 hours to get home? Very relatable. It's very relatable, right? Did I do that okay? Very much so. That was great, Tom. Futures up 15. Dow futures. The Gulf Stream gets blown around in the Gulf Stream. This is Bloomberg.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
TSB's Fix and Flex loan offers one of the best rates you can get. 2.9% APR representative fixed for up to 5 years. On loans from £7,500 to £25,000. Subject to status, UK residents only over 21. Based on de facto data, January 2020.
One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
Sign up to Walk All Over Cancer with Cancer Research UK. Walk 10,000 steps every day in March and help raise money for life-saving research.
Are you ready, Boots?
It's a sunny day, perfect for walking.
Start walking.
Use the 10,000 steps a day challenge to explore London, get fit and help beat cancer. Come on, search Walk All Over Cancer and sign up now.
Dribbles with the right hand. Now he attacks. Dribbles with the left hand. Drives, goes up off the glass, banks it in!
The 2020 NBA All-Star Game is live on TuneIn Premium.
Stop with the right hand! Because this thing is over!
Catch every fast break, fadeaway, and alley-oop as Team LeBron and Team Giannis go head-to-head in Chicago. Which star will shine the brightest? Who will be named this year's MVP? Find out Sunday at 8 Eastern with ESPN Radio's live coverage of the NBA All-Star Game on TuneIn. Search Premium to upgrade today.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow and TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
To get it right the first time.
We always talk about the losers in a trade war.
You benefit if you're just further away from China.
So that you can too.
What are the ramifications if she crumbles or doesn't crumble?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
The Federal Reserve's independence is crucial.
Central banks should be prepared and not presumptuous.
Finance.
In order to grow, you need to innovate.
Global money doesn't like uncertainty.
Investment.
I think the issue in the market is really more about the possibility of a recession in the next couple of years.
I do think we need to get back to where we have always been, the American dream.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene, thank you for being with us. Good morning, Boston, 106.1 FM, Bloomberg 11.30 in New York, 99.1 in Washington, change Washington after what we saw in New Hampshire, now on to Nevada, now on to South Carolina. Good morning in the distant morning of San Francisco, 960 on the Bay Area, and serious good morning across this nation on Sirius XM, channel 119. We've had far too many bullish conversations. We'll get to that in a moment here. Again, futures up 15. You know, I guess, are we out to SPX record futures right now, Paul?
I believe we are, absolutely.
I mean, I'm
looking at my little GP graph here, looking at the SPX.
There's a fancy panel to do this, and I'm doing it now in the Bloomberg terminal. You can do this, folks, from your car with a Bloomberg terminal. Yeah, we're almost to a record high, seen at 3:30 a.m. this morning.
Yep. So
kind of thing. It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, the coronavirus was there for a very, very short time. So we're back to a world awash in cash.
We've had some really professional, nuanced justification of valuations, and we'll get to that here in a little bit of this hour.
I think that's where the conversation needs to go, Tom, because we had no earnings growth to speak of last year, despite the 38% increase in the S&P, 29%. So it must materialize this year.
I can't keep track of the politics, so I went into CVS last night to get some Bayer aspirin, and they said, no, it's Bayer. There's Bayer and there's Bayer.
Right.
I got Bayer aspirin at CVS last night. That's my segue into David Wilson. I was looking at CVS. Is this like the worst merger ever? Am I guessing one socket got it wrong? How is
CVS is doing just fine, Tom. And bear in mind, they've got the drugstores, they've got CVS Caremark in pharmacy benefit management, and they've also got the health insurer Aetna. You put it all together, the shares are up about 1.5% in early trading. Fourth quarter revenue beat analyst average estimate in a Bloomberg survey by the most in more than a decade. Earnings also exceeded
So they're getting their act together on this merger.
Yeah, they are, and they're doing some management changes to kind of help things along. Yeah, they have a new head of their CVS Caremark business.
Yeah, okay, David, going back 6 years, make it 8 years, 40 to 100, and the thing has been a train wreck since 2015, the last 4 years. It hasn't happened. You're saying all clear?
All I'm saying is the earnings are being well received. Now, whether that's all clear, who knows? Let's move on. Talk about Marathon Petroleum. They're up 3%. People familiar with the matter said the company's Speedway gas stations have drawn interest from the convenience store chain 7-Eleven's Japanese owner and also from private equity firm TDR Capital. Then you have Lyft.
Oh, boy.
Not lifting.
Really?
Down about 5%.
I missed this.
The ride-hailing company didn't move up its timetable for profitability as rival Uber did last week. Now, Lyft now expects to make money on an adjusted basis a year later than Uber does.
That makes me question some of the Uber guidance, pulling their profit break even a full year forward. what levers can they pull that Lyft can't pull? So,
well, they've got a broader business.
Yep.
I mean, they work with restaurants to deliver food. They have, other, kind of pieces, and they're international, and Lyft is basically just U.S. So that's the distinction. Now, you were mentioning the coronavirus.
Yes.
I got to point out that Las Vegas Sands is up 1.5%, and Wynn Resorts is up 3%. Both companies own casinos in the Chinese city of Macau, where they had to shut down because of the coronavirus temporarily. And they were both raised to buy from Neutral Bank of America, and they're citing easy concern about the effect of the coronavirus, especially in China. A couple of other analyst calls of note: Micron Technology up 3%. The memory chip maker was raised to buy from Neutral UBS. And a Biomed, that's a maker of heart pumps, also in the S&P 500, down 3.5%. A Biomed cut the equivalent of sell from hold at Morgan Stanley. I could talk about a lot of companies, but I gotta mention Bed Bath & Beyond.
Oh, please.
The most active stock in early trading, down 26%. The home furnishings retailer sales fell 5.4% in December and January. That stores open more than a year. Now, Bed Bath & Beyond said those same store sales dropped along with customer visits. Store traffic went down.
Not good.
They also had, quote, inventory management issues.
I mean, we're talking stocks here, same timeline as CVS. I'm going to call it 40 to 80, not 100, 40 to 80, down to $15 a share, 1.5.
Yep.
$15 a share.
People just going online. People just going online for that stuff. Amazon, it's in your front doorstep the next day.
Are you done over there? I've never seen you so sedate.
Done enough.
Do you have an earnings summary very quickly here? Do you have a season summary?
Well, I'll give you the highlights. I mean, fourth quarter earnings, analysts were expecting for the S&P 500 to be down. They're now up once we've got most of the results in. Thing is, though, that profit projections for this year are coming down, and that's an area for concern.
Yeah, David Wilson, thank you so much. Paul Sweeney, I'm looking at Bed Bath & Beyond from a peak of $12.3 billion, I believe that is in sales. 12.3, 11.3, 11.1, and they're modeling out under $11 billion. So like over 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, no growth. It's retail.
No growth. There's a decline.
Yep, absolutely.
Decline.
All right, we finally got the Sprint T-Mobile deal. Got a big thumbs up yesterday. There was a multi-state lawsuit to block the deal that got put down. So we're basically getting this deal done. Sprint was up 77% yesterday. Just extraordinary. But there's still one little stumbling block. That would be the state of California. Jonathan Reed, Bloomberg Law Government reporter, joins us on the phone. So, Jonathan, California is out there. How big of a hurdle is that for this deal to clear?
I'd say it's a small hurdle, but it still needs to be overcome. You have the California Public Utilities Commission, which regulates telecommunications in California, the largest state in the country, and it needs to approve it. If it's not approved, if they reject it, that means that there could be more litigation. The commission has until July 12th to rule on this.
Yeah.
But, that is a remaining hurdle.
I like in your note, I didn't know this, 8.8 million in California for T-Mobile, 6.6 million for Sprint. On my quick math, there's 15.4 million. I don't know if that's a lot or not. Do Verizon and AT&T go in and say, no, this shouldn't happen? Are they agnostic?
I think at this point they're agnostic. They've been agnostic on the merger this entire time. The merger was first announced 2 years ago. They've been sitting on the sidelines, and I think that will continue to be the case going forward.
So, John, again, Sprint was up almost 78% yesterday. So the market's saying, hey, this deal is all but done. What's the sense of timing for this California thing? Is California going to say, all right, that multi-state lawsuit was settled, we're just going to, kind of throw in the towel here?
Yeah, so I think this lawsuit that was blocked, or that was prevailed on by the companies, basically, I think that puts more pressure on the regulator to rule on this. And this could happen by their next meeting in March. They have until July 12th to approve this or reject it. And the companies say that they're going to approve this merger, or they're going to go forward with this merger as soon as April.
Interesting. Why wasn't California part of the multi-state suit?
So they also were part of the multi-state suit. The Attorney General, Javier Becerra, was a major force in this. But in addition, you have this telecommunications regulator that hasn't approved the deal. So it's kind of been working on parallel tracks here.
What is California looking for? Are they looking for some kind of just concession here?
Yeah, that's a good question. Typically, what I'm hearing is that there are likely to be negotiations. California might seek worker protections, commitments to rural broadband, prices, stuff like that. So there are negotiations that are probably going on right now, and it's probably going to be settled that way rather than going through litigation.
Do they negotiate to decrease the phone bill or to increase their share of it through taxes?
That's something that I think will be worked out in the negotiations. Some other states have, some other states have dropped their opposition to the merger. For instance, Colorado, after the companies agreed to donate to state philanthropies, expand rural broadband. So I think the negotiations will go along that track.
Jonathan Reed with Bloomberg Law Department of Extortion joins us today. Jonathan Reed, thank you so much. Greatly appreciated as well on Sprint T-Mobile as well. We've had way too many bullish conversations. We're going to come back and do them, but I want to go over the groundwork here. We did a fancy conversation. Paul, I know you were still getting in. Sweeney comes in, folks, at like 8:52. It's an outrage.
No rush.
We did the dividend discount model where you go out, you take an earnings stream, a cash flow stream, a revenue stream out X number of years. You calculate a terminal value, then you all pull it back with a discount rate to where you are in the present. And my question with all these lower interest rates, are we extending out our terminal value where the 3-year analysis is now 5 years, the 5-year analysis is now 8 years, the 7-year classic CFA analysis is now 10 years. Are we extending out to justify where we are?
I think we are, Tom. I think the terminal value, when you do a discounted cash flow, the terminal value, takes on such a bigger role in the total valuation here. So, but it's giving, with these low interest rates, buyers are just going out there and they can fund this. Their stocks are probably at or near all-time highs. You look at the market, their borrowing rates are at all-time lows there. So, if this is the strongest capital structure for corporate America and capital markets environment for corporate America to go out there and get deals done. And so it's interesting. There's also a ton of private equity money out there, Tom, that's sitting on the sidelines. And, we saw this back before the financial crisis, and a lot of deals got done in 2006, 2007 that they're still trying to get out from under today. So you got to be careful.
Yeah, we will see an important conversation coming up on that in moments. Right now in New York City, the news. Here's Michael Barr.
Tom, Paul, thank you very much. Senator Bernie Sanders has narrowly won New Hampshire's presidential primary election, narrowly edging moderate rival Pete Buttigieg and scoring the first clear victory in the Democratic Party's 2020 nomination fight. The former mayor from Indiana says he's thrilled with the second-place outcome.
I'm so proud of our organizers and our volunteers, but also mindful that this is just the beginning. We are not going to write off one vote, and we're not going to take one vote for granted. So it's on to Nevada, on to South Carolina, and the states beyond.
Amy Klobuchar finished third. Elizabeth Warren was fourth, with Joe Biden fifth. The 4 lawyers who prosecuted Roger Stone quit the case after the Justice Department overruled them and lowered the amount of prison time it would seek for President Donald Trump's longtime ally and confidant. Democratic Senator Chris Coons talked about the behavior of President Trump since his acquittal by the Senate.
What we've seen since the impeachment vote last week is simply shocking actions by President Trump and silence, sadly, by many of my colleagues who should be speaking up on behalf of the independence of the Department of Justice and rule of law.
The lawyers who quit initially recommended a 7 to 9 year sentence. The DOJ reduced the recommendation to 3 to 4 years. The start of the 2020 census is just a month away for most U.S. residents, with that deadline looming. Census Bureau Director Stephen Dillingham is going to Capitol Hill to update lawmakers about the agency's readiness. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Paul, Tom?
Michael Barr, thank you so much. We have green on the screen yet again, a risk-on day. We have the S&P futures up 15 points. The Dow up an even 160 points. That puts the Dow at 29,390. NASDAQ up about 56 points. That's almost 0.6% on the NASDAQ. Looking at the Treasury market, a little bit of action there. 10-year Treasury down 5/30 seconds, pushing that yield up to about 1.62%. This is Tom Petty, and this is Bloomberg Surveillance.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at seic.com/seize change.
Influence. Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Switch to 5G on Vodafone. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G by March 8th and get wireless Galaxy Buds Plus for free. With unlimited 5G data, you can post 108 megapixel photos and download videos impossibly fast. All on the UK's best mobile data network. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
5G subject to coverage in your area. MPerf test awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance. Minimum term applies. See vodafone.co.uk.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. U.S. futures gaining this morning along with European shares. Crude oil is rallying amid signs of spread of the coronavirus, and China is slowing in investor optimism the global economy can weather the storm. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up about 17 points. Dow futures up 170. NASDAQ futures up 58. The DAX in Germany's up 1%. 10-year Treasury down 6/30 seconds. Yield 1.62%. And the yield on the 2-year 1.43%. NYMEX crude oil is up 3%, up $1.51 at $51.46 a barrel. COMEX gold is down $1.10, less than 0.1% at $15.69 an ounce. The euro 1.0904 against the dollar. British pound 1.2967, and the yen is at 110. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene driving forward the discussion on the equity markets. We do that with Anthony Dwyer of Canaccord Genuity right now. State the case, Anthony, what you would do right now. It's been a great bull market. You've participated. We've had Ben Laidler with his great call up 20% December of 2018. He's ratcheted back, but he's still bullish. Have you ratcheted back the enthusiasm?
From the index level, Tom, I have. Actually, I adopted back on January 20th a more neutral view because the market had gotten kind of so euphoric and ahead of itself. Now, some of that optimism and excessive overbought condition has been worked off. In other words, when it goes up in a straight line, it doesn't do it forever and it has to pause. And I think internally, although the market indices are making records, I think internally it's kind of going through a correction on the back of global growth fears with the coronavirus. So what am I doing right now? I'm really not doing much. I'm not trying to force it until there's better signals as to what it actually means to the global growth.
So, Tony, give us a sense of valuation here. Tom and I, we discuss often about, we look at the move the market, equity markets had in 2019 with little to no earnings growth. Where are we in valuation, and kind of how critical is it for the C-suite to deliver corporate profits in 2020 growth?
Well, I think it's going to be, obviously, it's always critical. The market correlates most directly to the direction of earnings. So it ultimately has got to be positive. But, Paul, this is one of the most misquoted things, I think, that exist in finance. When people look at for example, the price to earnings multiple, the historical average or median is somewhere around 14.5 to 15 times. So at 20 times earnings, or 19 to 20 times earnings, people would say, oh my God, it's so overvalued. But you really have to break that down based on where inflation and interest rates are. So when you have very high inflation, you have a very low market multiple, 8 to 9 to 10 times. When you have very low inflation and interest rates, you have a very high average market multiple. So when the core inflation rate is where it is today, right around 2%, historically you trade at 19 times. So I would say it's fair.
Have you figured out ratios if you take out all the stocks that you single-handedly pulled up to trillion-dollar valuations? If you take out the 5, the 6, the 8, whatever it is, stocks that are ginormous, what does the market cheapness look like then?
I don't do that, Tom, because that's data mining. Because it's sort of like, I got asked the question yesterday, is inflation under or overstated? And for me, I don't care. It's I know what the Fed uses, right? And it's the same thing with the PE multiple. Then if I do it today, I have to go back over the course of the last bazillion years and figure out what stocks drove it then. And I just don't think it's fair. I just think the valuation of the market is fair. It's not really expensive. It's not really cheap based on interest rates. And earnings are unclear because of the global growth environment with a coronavirus outlook. And that's being made evidence because what's interesting are these huge mega cap stocks that everybody's watching drive the indices to high levels. They're actually now considered defensive stocks. That is a huge. When I say that out loud, it sounds insane, but predictable, strong growth with good liquidity is considered defensive now. So we're in this environment that this could get really weird, where the indices do nothing, but there's an offensive trade underneath it, meaning, you're buying the banks, the industrials, and the non-software technologies.
Tony, are you concerned that there is a narrative out there that, what we're seeing in equity markets, across financial markets in general, is really liquidity driven with just so much easy money out there in the marketplace?
It is, but it's not. People have this perception, and it's portrayed in the media like the Fed is providing all this liquidity that's buying stocks, and it's not. What's happening is low inflation is equaling lower interest rates. Lower interest rates means that means companies and individuals can borrow money at extraordinarily low levels. So instead of having my original mortgage, and I know Tom, since he's a little bit older than me, just a touch. My first interest rate was 8% on my mortgage, and I had to pay points to get it. Today, if you're getting 3%, you do 3% on a bad market. So, the low level of inflation is really driving the liquidity. I think it's easy to, and it's frankly a little bit lazy to say, the Fed's providing this liquidity.
Yeah.
It's really low interest rates.
Well, to go back to the first time I did a mortgage, which is, I think it was 64, 65 or something like that. It was the Nifty 50. Are the 6 stocks this time our Nifty 6?
Yeah, I think so, Tom. And I think that's really, I think that's the message here, that you've gotten this bump up in the S&P 500 and the other major indices on these mega cap $1 trillion stocks. The rest of the market's just kind of been sitting there. Right. And from when I beat myself up when I feel like I've not given the right advice. Right. So when I go neutral on January 20th, I'm thinking, wow, what a dummy. The market's at an all-time high. But then when you look at the small cap stocks, the semiconductors, the banks, they're below where that was then. So the market's been correcting. So there's this real shot that Nifty 50-ish kind of thought process holds the indices flat while the underlying stocks actually start to get a little better.
Okay. The theme today, Tony, away from the equity markets is, when did camp get expensive? Do you remember when camp was cheap? Like, you threw a small check at a camp and said, here, take, Junior for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I mean,
buddy, don't you remember? My camp was my mom and dad saying, go out and play in the woods.
Yeah, go play. That was your camp. Watch out for the snakes. And then you would go to the woods then. There were no snakes, but
don't get kicked
go
by
to the
deer.
woods. Tony Dwyer, thank you so much. Camping as a child and the dangers, the weeds of New Jersey. Anthony Dwyer, Canaccord Genuity. It was, we make light jokes about it, Paul, but these strategists, it's all great now. Happy. Remember, like 08, 09, 10, unemployment rate. I remember ING was brilliant on saying enough, it's got to go down. John Silvey at Wells Fargo at the time, same way. Nobody believed them. They were so lonely, and it was the same with the equity strategists.
And what's the exogenous event? If it were the housing crisis and bringing up all the issues of the financial crisis, what's the event to tip this market over? What keeps these equity strategists up at night? It's just, I think if the Fed were to just, the Fed is probably the issue, and we saw that back in the fourth quarter of 18. So, but right now we're grinding up. We got 6 stocks as the Nifty 6 kind of really having an outsized impact.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
This is our story. The Birds of Prey.
Roman is building an army. He's after all of us. We gotta clean the city from the inside out.
Critics are saying Margot Robbie is brilliant as Harley Quinn.
Hi, boys.
Birds of Prey is a fantastic assault on the senses. Brilliantly acted and very funny. 4 stars. Birds of Prey in cinemas now. Certificate 15.
Where are we?
The New Forest.
But I thought we only had the Mini Countryman booked for a test drive. We can't stay here.
We're not going to.
This isn't exactly what I meant.
Relax. With Mini's new 48-hour test drive, you can use the Countryman for exactly what it's built for. Exploring. Plus, it's an SUV, the largest Mini in the range, so you can pack loads more in.
Great. Where next?
Well, you know how you've always wanted to try kayaking?
The Mini Countryman 48-hour test drive. Visit mini.co.uk to book yours. Mini. Who's in? Test drive subject to status and availability. Terms and conditions apply. Participating Mini retailers only.
Got the pick and mix, Sergey? Oh, yeah. What movie are we watching? Superhero. Sergey, we have superpowers. Look, I can fly. And I've got claws and a tail. Sergey, you've always had claws and a tail. Oh, yeah. Did I always have laser vision? Oh, no, Sergey. Close your eyes. Enjoy endless adventures with 2-for-1 cinema tickets from Meerkat Movies when you buy through Compare the Market. Qualifying purchases Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Participating cinemas, 2 standard tickets only. Cheapest ticket free. T's and C's apply.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
And good morning. I'm Karen Moscow along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. And the S&P 500 is higher at the open. It's up 0.4%. It's up 14 points at 33.72. And the opening bell is brought to you by SEI. Asset managers don't get results that are off the charts when their solutions are off the shelf. Learn how SEI's operating platform can turn infrastructure into a competitive advantage at SEIC.com/IMS. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.6% or 176 points at 29,453. The Nasdaq's up 0.6% or 56 points at 96.96. 10-year Treasury down 6/32, yield 1.62%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.43%. NYMEX crude oil up 3.3%, up $1.62 to $51.56 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 0.1% on $1.30 to $15.6870 an ounce. The euro is at 1.0909 against the dollar, the yen 110.02, and we're watching Carnival. It is up 0.7%. It did say it saw a material impact on results as a result of the coronavirus. And Tom and Paul.
Thanks so much. Greatly appreciate that. Paul Sweeney, the Bentley was in the shop today, so I took Lyft.
Yep.
$15.83. I do something called Pink, so the fee was $13.46. They want me like to tip $237 or $317 or $396. And what I know is I'm certain a taxi cab would have been $16 or $17 or maybe even $18 with my big fancy Tom Keene tip. And, great. I don't get the math.
The math.
I just don't get what I'm seeing on my phone. I don't get the math.
You don't need to get the math because I know somebody who does get the math. Mandeep Singh covers Lyft and Uber and all these tech things, the gig economy for Bloomberg Intelligence. He joins us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. So Lyft, numbers last night, underwhelming the street. The stock opens up down 7%. What did Lyft not do last night that maybe Uber did get right when it reported numbers?
Yeah, so one thing that investors were looking for was profitability. Uber pushed it forward by a year. They said they'll be EBITDA profitable by 4Q20. In case of Lyft, they didn't change that, so it's still 4Q21. And the top line is decelerating from 60% plus to 30%. Now, Uber's forecast, the top line for next year, was above 30%. So Uber is the scale company here. It's 4 times bigger than Lyft, and it has a higher revenue growth forecast. That's a problem for Lyft.
All right, you've actually been consistent on this. We've had you in here, and I said, they kind of look the same. One could argue that Lyft is an easier, more straightforward story. They're not in the eats business, and maybe and you've been saying, no, scale, leverage, Uber might be the better platform. What does Lyft need to really, is the difference in profitability timing simply one of scale for Uber versus Lyft?
Well, first thing is there are no moats in ride sharing and food delivery business except for scale. That's the only moat in this business. Otherwise, it's very easy to disrupt, these businesses. And in case of Uber, what they got right was they kind of built that leverage on insurance. So you will see that in the EBITDA margins of ride section for Uber. It's positive 22%. In case of Lyft, their EBITDA margins are negative 13% as of the last quarter. And that's where the insurance leverage shows up.
Say that again. Their margins are negative 13%, which is what I just described on my cell phone.
Yes.
Well, so again, when you look at how much Lyft is paying for insuring that ride, the gross margin for Lyft is around 52%. In case of Uber, the gross margin is close to 60%. And then you trickle down to the EBITDA line. There are more costs for Lyft simply because of the regulatory requirements in the U.S. You got to comply with the insurance requirements in the U.S. In case of Uber, they operate in emerging markets. There are no insurance requirements there, or they're very kind of little.
Is there a boards of directors or CEOs managing these oligopolies for takeout? Are they literally managing it out X number of man-deep quarters to find somebody dumb enough to buy this shell game?
Well, so we have seen this play out with Grubhub. Grubhub is a great example of a company that has kind of suffered from lack of scale. We know Uber Eats
that's man-deep talk for not making any money. Continue.
But I put Lyft in the same bucket as Grubhub. That's why I'm making that example. So Grubhub and food delivery is exactly similar to Lyft on the ride-sharing side. And that's been the challenge for, both these companies which are focused on that niche geographic segment in the U.S., and you can't do that. If you're an internet marketplace, look at all the companies, Twitter, Snap, you have to find user growth, and that's international. You're not going to find user growth from 200 million adult audience.
Profit growth.
You can, because in case of Netflix and all these companies that acquire subs internationally, those subs are profitable over time because, again, the cost when it comes to the gross margin, they are equal or even much better in certain cases than the U.S. And so you can find profitable growth internationally, yes.
All right. Is Tom's fare from the Upper East Side surveillance penthouse down to Bloomberg, is that going up? Are they going to start raising prices across the board? Are we at that point?
They did to JFK.
They did already?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they have. And so they call it pricing rationalization.
Really?
and they will
have an email from Redo, keeper of the Amex. He didn't think it was pricing rationalization.
So you are going to see higher prices, but guess what? They have a lot of data, so they can assess the demand and supply and ETAs of cars, by cities, by regions, and they can tailor the pricing. So they have a pricing advantage relative to the taxis, the traditional car services because of the amount of data they have collected.
Okay, I'm in a suit here from Men's Warehouse. Paul's wearing Brooks Brothers, and you're wearing something from London we can't afford. Great. It's all a bunch of fancy suit talk. How are the drivers doing?
And so drivers, I feel both Lyft and Uber are talking about engendering driver loyalty and rolling out.
Engendering driver loyalty, to me, I had a fancy car pick me up today, and I paid for a cheap car. How's that guy make money?
Well, so again, I go back to switching costs. There are no switching costs when it comes to riders, when it comes to drivers in entire ride sharing space. So that's a hard part for these type of businesses is you are operating with an asset-light model, and you have no loyalty, and the switching costs are so low. So they will have a tough time unless they find ways to retain riders and retain drivers on the platform.
All right, so one of the big risks to this ride-sharing model is the fact that they are not employees. They are, I guess, contractors. But where are we in some states, I think notably California, saying, no, I think these folks need to be employees, and therefore there's an extra layer of cost. Where are we in that?
Well, so obviously both Uber and Lyft have made certain changes to their app in California, and that over time will drive up costs because they have to pay out more in terms of hourly wages and probably some benefits. I do think over time they will work out with the regulators when it comes to, their business model. Having all these drivers as employees and giving them those kind of benefits is just not a sustainable thing for these companies. So they will have to work with the regulators on this one.
How about in London when Tom goes over there? I mean, again, he likes to take the black taxis and, he'll have them pull right up to the Ned. What's going on in London over there?
Well, so that's another risk from a regulatory standpoint. And what, again, these companies did well is Uber, to their advantage, was so kind of aggressive when it comes to expanding globally that they figured out a way to expand without really getting into the regulatory hurdles that any new company would face if they were to try to expand globally. So I think they still have an advantage when it comes to, the penetration they have already.
What is the run rate of revenue growth you're modeling? I mean, he's down there. Have you ever seen Mandeep's desk? He's got the Kofel and Esser 1947 slide rule.
Yeah.
It's just amazing how he does it. It's like in the movie Apollo 13. Doing it. You get the slide rule out. What's the revenue growth of this whole racket of ride sharing and all that?
So our view is this is about a $200 billion industry globally, ride sharing. And it's still growing at a healthy high teens.
High teens,
yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, and so when Uber comes out and gives a forecast for 30% plus growth, when the market overall is growing 20%, and you have two big players, Uber globally and Didi in China. So they control 70% plus of the market.
But the analog here, Good Morning Philadelphia, is Comcast. And the idea that you ran it for its growthiness and one day you flip it, and I remember Dennis Leibowitz, this is a million years ago with DLJ, you were going to flip it and turn it into a cash flow beast. Do you look at your world as equivalent to cable TV cash flow?
No, I don't think it will ever reach that stage.
Doesn't have a utility characteristic.
No, I think the free cash flow is very far out when it comes to ride-sharing and food delivery businesses.
Forget about food. Come on, afterthought last night. 8:30, she's ordering boba mosa. It's like tea with little pellet thingies in it and whatever. The guy delivers it. It costs like $8. Who knows what she's tipping the guy. Nobody's making money on food delivery, period. Yes. Is there any analog here to the joy we all got out of cable TV cash flows years ago when they flipped?
The analog is in bundling. So eventually, when there are only 2 or 3 players left, and Uber can bundle ride-sharing, food delivery, grocery delivery, and they have the best ETAs when it comes to delivering these things, that's when people will be willing to pay a subscription fee for something like this, a monthly subscription fee. But we're at least 2-3 years out.
The world's changing, Tom.
A monthly subscription fee
to get
for
food.
Familia Pizza.
Mandeep Singh, thanks so much for joining us.
I love busting your chops on this. Can we just say Mandeep has been brilliant on the recovery of Uber.
He has. It's been great.
Absolutely brilliant. Mandeep Singh, thank you so much. Right now with the news in New York City, here's Michael Barr.
Tom, Paul, thank you very much. Bernie Sanders has won New Hampshire's Democratic presidential primary election. Sanders declared his victory in New Hampshire is the beginning of the end for President Donald Trump. Pete Buttigieg finished second. Amy Klobuchar finished a strong third. Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden finished fourth and fifth, respectively. Buttigieg acknowledges that Biden is wrong when he calls the New Hampshire primary and Iowa caucus just the beginning.
These first two states are very meaningful, but he's right. The competition moves on now to different states, new states with different makeups, different experiences, and we will be competing, making sure that our message reaches every voter and earning that support, especially mindful that we are moving into more racially diverse states.
Andrew Yang and Michael Bennett dropped out of the race. China has reported another drop in the number of new cases of a viral infection and 97 more deaths, pushing the total dead past 1,100, as postal services worldwide say delivery was being affected by the cancellation of many flights to China. The National Health Commission said today that 2,015 new cases of the coronavirus had been reported over the last 24 hours. Dr. Anthony Fauci with the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases cautions against being complacent.
When you look into monitoring of infections, you sometimes see it go up and down. I'm glad to see that it isn't greatly accelerating, but the numbers of cases each day are still alarming.
The total number of cases is around 45,000 globally. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. Michael Barr, this is Bloomberg. Tom?
Michael Barr, thank you so much. We are 13 minutes into the morning trading session. S&P up 18 points again. The Dow up 215 points. We're on that 30,000 watch, Tom. 29,495. Another move up in the markets. Nothing really going.
That's a Dow record. We had SPX record the other day. That's
absolutely.
a Dow
all time. Exactly right. So 10-year Treasury's down 730 seconds. 10-year 1.62% on your 10-year. Tom, edging into the market ever so gradually. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look at luxury. Up till now, it seemed like the luxury experience was the answer to retail woes brought by online shopping. But fallout from the retail apocalypse is putting pressure even on high-end malls in affluent areas. So much so that Simon Property Group, the biggest U.S. mall company, is buying competitor Taubman Centers for $3.6 billion in a bid to expand. A Bloomberg index of North American mall operators was down 40% over the past year through Friday's close. Fugitive former Nissan chairman Carlos Ghosn has hired legendary agent Michael Ovitz to explore film and TV projects about his life. Ovitz is the founder of Creative Artists Agency and former president of Walt Disney. A deal with the Hollywood studio could be a significant financial boon to Ghosn, who forfeited $14 million in bail money when he fled Japan at the end of December. A cinematic caper that one security expert estimated could have cost him another $15 million. Visit BloombergPursuits.com for more. I'm Andrew O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Global news.
Where are we?
The New Forest.
But I thought we only had the Mini Countryman booked for a test drive. We can't stay here.
We're not going to.
This isn't exactly what I meant.
Relax. With Mini's new 48-hour test drive, you can use the Countryman for exactly what it's built for. Exploring. Plus, it's an SUV, the largest Mini in the range, so you can pack loads more in.
Great. Where next?
Well, you know how you've always wanted to try kayaking?
The Mini Countryman 48-hour test drive. Visit mini.co.uk to book yours. Mini. Who's in? Test drive subject to status and availability. Terms and conditions apply. Participating Mini retailers only.
Dear Cass, sweet pea, not sure what I did to deserve a love like yours. Still can't believe I get to wake up next to you every day. I'm so lucky. You make me want to be a better man. Mind, body, and soul.
Pork balls, fried rice, kung pao chicken, spring rolls extra fried, order 55.
Yeah, here. Happy Valentine's, my love, forever, your little boop. This Valentine's Day, heartfelt can happen anywhere with moonpig.com. Download the app today.
Good morning, this is your Southern service to London Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What sea sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking, and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. U.S. equities are gaining along with European and Asian shares as optimism grows that the global economy can recover from the impact of the coronavirus amid signs the spread of the illness is slowing. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. The S&P 500 up 0.5% or 17 points at 3375. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.7% or 204 points at 29,482. And the Nasdaq's up 0.5% or 52 points at 9691. 10-year Treasury down 736. Yield 1.62%. The yield on the 2-year 1.43%. NYMEX crude oil is up 3%, up $1.48 to $51.42 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.1% and $1.90 to $15.68.20 an ounce. The euro at 1.0903 against the dollar. The yen 110.03. Akamai, one of the best performers in the S&P 500 this morning. It's up 4.6%. The company reporting fourth quarter results that beat expectations and gave an outlook that analysts said looked like it could do better. Cruise giant Carnival warning that the coronavirus crisis will have a material impact on its financial results as the leisure industry reels from quarantines, travel restrictions, and growing fears. And its shares are higher this morning, up 2.4%. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Thanks so much, Karen. Greatly appreciate that. The romance of it all is wonderful. The quality Dunkin' Donuts of New Hampshire and, the donuts that he's tried in every town, Bedford, New Hampshire, leading off. I think they have 10 donut shops in Bedford, New Hampshire. The reality, folks, is you wake up after 2 hours of sleep, do the ballet, and then you have to get in the Bentley and, drive down to Washington to do Sound On tonight at 5 p.m. That's a little window into Kevin Cirilli's, the romance of the Kevin Cirilli life as well. Kevin, let me get to 5 p.m. tonight. What will you do on Sound On this evening?
Well, after I got off air with you from a couple of hours ago, I started texting my sources and I said, what's going on with Roger Stone? So I got my eyes on the Roger debacle and the departure of all of those attorneys, and I can tell you all of those shakeups. So we'll talk about that. But really, I think we are missing the moment right now.
Tell us what it is.
That Senator Bernie Sanders is having. And I'm really struck by this, and maybe it's because I grew up, and you and I have talked about it, and probably I've joked about it too much, but there's a part of the country that decides not between centrists and more left-wing candidates or centrists and more right-wing candidates, but between populists. And we are on the cusp of having potentially
a populist run
election.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating.
Yeah. That really goes back to Huey Long and Joe McCarthy and the rest of it. The idea here that they were up against the establishment, right. And you're suggesting is populist versus populist.
And then beyond that, where would the business community go? Would they go to Trump or would they go to Sanders?
And London is the answer.
Exactly. No, but in all seriousness, I wish that I could, videotape them and put them on air, because I keep running into voters who are deciding between Trump and Sanders, and that will decide the election. Now, I'm not saying this is a lock-in for Bernie Sanders in any stretch of the imagination, but the idea that Sanders supporters would go quietly is a pipe dream. And I also think that there's this myth in so many of our colleagues outside of us, of course, our news organization, who keep talking about all the rules and the nuances and the delegates and the SDEs, which we learned about in Iowa. And no one has time for that. You think of the week that America had in the political discourse, from bookended last night to the Iowa caucus on the other end, and then it was State of the Union, then the acquittal, right. Then all of this other stuff. People have lives.
Okay. Paul, jump in here. I got like 8 more questions.
So, Kevin, what do you think Bernie Sanders needs to change, if anything, as he heads to South Carolina and Nevada and the rest of it?
I don't think he's got to change a thing. I think from his standpoint, he's got to expand the coalition. He's got to take away, he's got to be able to peel off some of the Buttigieg supporters, so to speak, Biden supporters. And that's another thing. I actually think you're going to see some Biden supporters go to Bernie. And we started this election, Paul, talking about how Biden was the white working class candidate.
Right.
Well, we just had 2 elections in white working class states, and he didn't even place in the top 3.
Right. This didn't come, Kevin, just because of time. I got to get this in. It's so important. The Midwest won 43% of the vote in New Hampshire. Klobuchar and Buttigieg. I was surprised within the punditry last night this didn't come up. What does it say about a Midwest Democratic Party and moderate Democrats that those 2 did so well?
I think it says a lot, and I think it shows just how complex populist and white working class voters are. I mean, it's really, dare I say, I want to be very careful, but dare I say, I think a lot of folks who are from that part of the country and who grew up that way are sick of being condescended by some of these pundits.
Oh no, excuse me. The East Coast pundits and bow ties would be condescending. That's an outrage.
Okay, as long as I don't get in trouble, I'll go one step further. It's sickening. And I think, Amy Klobuchar tapped into that.
Like
Bernie
Mrs.
Sanders
King.
tapped into that. And I think I think Klobuchar and the idea that Bernie Sanders wouldn't be able to unify the party, it's a coalition he's got to build. It's not like there'd be no moderates in his White House. I mean, you look at Klobuchar, you look at Bernie, you look at Warren, all of them could be, in the mix for a host of different things. I think Bernie was the one that circulated. I don't want to have Wall Street on edge, but Bernie was the one who circulated a couple weeks ago Elizabeth Warren as Treasury Secretary.
So speaking of Elizabeth Warren, where does she fit in here? What's the role?
Well, she's got a work cut out for her. I was struck by how she underperformed. She beat Biden, but she didn't beat Amy Klobuchar. And, she's from a nearby state, and this was really home turf for her. And, the pathway forward for her becomes increasingly more difficult. Her campaign says she's in till Super Tuesday. But Warren supporters don't just go to Bernie supporters. Warren supporters also go to Buttigieg supporters. To Buttigieg.
Kevin, we don't care. The Dow's at a record high. Bye, Kevin. Safe travels.
Neither does Bernie
Sanders. Great. Sound on tonight. Kevin Cerulli killing it up in New Hampshire. And, of course, with good perspective, particularly on the Department of Justice. Tonight, 29,511 we just burst up to.
Yeah, here we go. I mean, it's just...
So now we can officially say 30,000 watch.
30,000 watch. NASDAQ, up also just across the board. S&P up 15 points here. So grinding higher. It's the, I wouldn't say it's necessarily earnings driven. I mean, the fourth quarter numbers that we're kind of getting through as Dave Wilson reports to us, they've been good. But I think the expectation, but, certainly no growth to speak of. So if you're thinking about earnings growth being a driver for this market, you're really banking on the back half of this year.
Year to date, SPX up 4.4%. So if I do my fancy pants extrapolation, that's up 24%.
Exactly. Well, after a year, that was up 29% in the S&P. So, it's global liquidity.
It is extraordinary. A major shout out to Jeffrey Yu of UBS, who really pushed that 100 days ago, the wall of money that is out there. We are produced by Richard Schumann, Ken Fallio, our global technical director. The Dow up 204 points. This is Bloomberg.
TSB's Fix and Flex loan offers one of the best rates you can get. 2.9% APR representative fixed for up to 5 years. And the freedom to pay more whenever you want, or even take a break if you like. Because no one can really predict what the future holds. On loans from £7,500 to £25,000, subject to status, UK residents only, over 21. Based on de facto data January 2020. Up to 2 repayment holidays a year subject to approval.
Winter joggers of London, it's chilly. Your legs are caked in mud and your nose is running faster than you. Then, get that heating on. You deserve it. Thanks to Hive Active Heating, you can control your heating wherever you are with a tap of the app, which could save you up to £120 a year by never having to heat an empty home. Buy today and get a free Amazon Echo Dot. Search Hive Heating. Hive services require broadband and Wi-Fi. Terms apply.
Ah, finally another commercial, said no one ever.
Visit tunein.com/premium to upgrade now and get over 45 commercial-free music stations.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
The 2020 NBA All-Star Game is live on TuneIn Premium. Catch every fast break, fadeaway, and alley-oop as Team LeBron and Team Giannis go head-to-head in Chicago.
Deep three, and in! Oh, man! 5 to shoot, LeBron long three, good!
Which star will shine the brightest? Who will be named this year's MVP? Find out Sunday at 8 Eastern with ESPN Radio's live coverage of the NBA All-Star Game on TuneIn. Search Premium to upgrade today.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn. When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Retailer said that sales fell more than 5% in December and January from the year before. Even though digital sales were a bright spot, one research analyst says the company may be too far gone for a turnaround to ultimately succeed. Lyft is lower. Just like its rival Uber, it lost money in the final 3 months of 2019. Uber, though, thinks it will become profitable by the end of this year. And Lyft says it still doesn't see turning a profit until late next year. Checking crude oil this morning, it's higher by 3.3% at $51.60 a barrel. The Dow up more than 200 points. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
They don't just talk to the most important people.
Can you give us your broad sense of the main driver behind the latest weakness?
They talk with the most interesting people.
When you talk to your clients, are they taking this seriously?
Lisa Abramowitz.
What's going to be the main driver of growth?
Paul Sweeney.
What did you take away from those Amazon numbers last night?
Bloomberg Markets.
Is it as ominous this time around?
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Where's your views on the municipal bond landscape?
The market does not like uncertainty, does not react well to uncertainty.
There's a whole lot of optimism around the valuation of Uber.
What is Ford saying about the self-driving car?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Maybe we're getting hooked on debt and low interest rates.
The black hole called power could be a bigger black hole.
Only buy IPO stock that you can't get. If you can get it, it's probably a dog you don't want it.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, new record highs for the NASDAQ and S&P can't keep the market down despite the fact that the coronavirus has not disappeared yet, though there is some stabilization. We're going to be speaking about that, plus OPEC coming out, downgrading its expectation for oil. We'll dig into the prospects there. Right now, Greg Jarrett has the numbers for us with the Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Well, thank you, Lisa. Stocks are up to records again, tracking European and Asian stocks higher as optimism grows that the global economy can recover from the impact of the coronavirus amid signs the spread of the illness is slowing. Crude oil's rallying and treasuries are down. Kate Moore at BlackRock tells Bloomberg they are overweight U.S. stocks.
But I will tell you, when we're investing in Europe in particular, we're really being selective.
It's hard to buy the broad market. Look at European stocks and the companies that are generating good growth, that have the good globally diverse sales, that are geared towards, like, say, China and the consumer, are trading at a massive premium to the rest of the market.
Cruise giant Carnival warns the coronavirus crisis will have a material impact on its financial results as the leisure industry reels from quarantines, travel restrictions, and growing fears. But Carnival is up 1.5%. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 0.6%, up 19. The Dow's up 0.9%, up 257. And the Nasdaq's up 0.5%, up 51. The 10-year is down 8/30 seconds. The yield is 1.62%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 3.3% at 51.57 a barrel, while COMEX gold's down 0.2% at 15.6670 an ounce. The dollar yen 110.06, the euro $1.901, and the British pound $1.2961. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets is on now with Lisa and Paul.
Greg Jarrett, thank you so much. As Greg was just reporting, cannot keep a good market down. We have the Nasdaq up 0.5 percentage point, the Dow up 0.9%, and Nasdaq up 0.5%. To see where the action is underneath the hood, we turn to Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson. Dave, what are you looking at this morning?
Well, what's interesting about today is you get companies talking about the effect of the coronavirus on their business, and their shares go up. I mean, look at Carnival, look at the cruise lines more generally. Carnival saying that canceled voyages and lost bookings because of the coronavirus will have a material impact on results. Material that's sort of standard for accounting terms when you got to talk about what's going on. And yet the shares are higher by close to 3%. Royal Caribbean's up. Norwegian Cruise Line is up. And another one is PVH. I mean, that's Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger. And, they've had to close some stores in China. No surprise. A lot of companies have. They also get some of their apparel from China. So, when you put it all together, they're reaffirming their earnings forecast for, really now it's an estimate for their latest fiscal year. And, they haven't really kind of expressed a lot of concern about what's ahead. So you see PVH shares among the top performers in the S&P 500. They're up 5.7%. So it really looks like one of those days where coronavirus at the very least recedes into the background as an issue for companies when it comes to doing business.
Or perhaps people are just getting a firmer sense of just how vast the liability will be. I mean, perhaps this is just an issue of perhaps stocks would be even higher and much higher at that if it weren't for the coronavirus worry. Are we getting any sense of how much of a dampening effect it's had, even as we reach new highs?
Well, at this point, it's kind of hard to see how much of an effect there might even be. I mean, you look at how we're doing this year. You see the S&P 500 up close to 4.5%, the Nasdaq higher by almost 8%. And I got to tell you, I just you can set price alerts on your Bloomberg terminal. Yeah. I just set up 2 of them that are going to be sort of interesting milestones. 30,000 for the Dow Industrials. It's at 29,500 almost at this point. And 10,000 for the NASDAQ Composite, which it's just below 9,700 right now. It just goes to show you, as this advance keeps going, almost 11 years into a bull market, I mean, you're definitely up against some milestones here.
Paul, the reason why I ask that about how much of a dampening effect the coronavirus and sort of economic fallout from that has had is because Ray Dalio is coming out and saying he thinks the move's been exaggerated. What move? Right? I mean, this is seriously. I mean, is it just basically that things would just be that much higher otherwise?
I don't know. I mean, maybe he's looking at the commodities space. Commodities have been hit very hard, but we're seeing a little bit of a lift to oil today. To help us break down what's going on in the world of oil, we welcome Kriti Gupta. She covers markets live, reporter for Bloomberg News. She joins us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. So, Kriti, I saw the story out that OPEC is slashing oil demand forecast because of the virus. What's going on in the oil market? We're getting a little bit of a bump today.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't really news, right? We know the coronavirus was hitting commodities. We knew that OPEC was considering another potential barrel cut. This is not news that there is a demand outlook cut. That's not what's driving the market today. What is driving the market today is what's still part of that report. And if you look kind of in the fine details, you'll see that there's a part that says non-OPEC producers they've revised their outlook for their output down by 100,000 barrels. Now, that's not a huge number from non-OPEC producers. But what is important to note is that there is a lot of talk on the street about shale producers facing bankruptcy, getting some more barrels off of the market, in addition to having oil wells that are aged that are going to maybe produce a little bit less. So that is what's driving the oil market a little bit positive today.
Interesting that it's not necessarily OPEC plus, but the shale producers. Can you talk a little bit about the power, or the lack thereof, perhaps, that OPEC has over controlling the price here?
That's right. I mean, OPEC is not the only producer in the world for oil. No surprise there. They are the biggest, of course. But you are seeing new barrels on the market from Norway, Canada, Ghana, the U.S., of course. This is a market that over the last 10 years, shale has really taken over. And so OPEC, once again, is not, solely in control here. The big thing to watch, though, I think, when it comes to trading oil is what technical levels are we looking at? I mean, the 600,000 barrel cut has still not been confirmed. The meeting hasn't even been scheduled for OPEC to implement this. So from a supply side, that's not really something to watch yet unless we get clarity on who is exactly on board, Russia, Saudi Arabia, whatever. The key here to watch here is what oil is doing here in the markets and what kind of resistance it's facing. $50 was a key resistance level. We seem to have broken that this morning. It's now 51. Credit here for this technical analysis goes to Bill Maloney on MLive, who said that 52 is going to be just the next level, and then 53. And then if it passes those levels, that's when you'll see a really big recovery.
Well, Dave Wilson, the one area in the equity market that just really gets no love is the energy space. It doesn't I don't hear too many strategists saying now there's value there. Let's jump in.
Well, today's sort of an interesting contrast to that. Every single energy stock in the S&P 500 is higher as we speak. It's the best performer out of the 11 main industry groups in the S&P 500, up 1.7% for their industry gauge. Some much needed relief, no doubt, for investors who've been suffering for a while. Whether that lasts, who knows? But it's kind of consistent with the theme that the coronavirus, moves to the back burner as a concern here.
Interesting. And maybe it's that the spread is maybe the acceleration, the second derivative, that maybe has kind of peaked a little bit.
There is a sense, if you believe the China data, and this is a big if that people are kind of postulating, although people do say it's more reliable than during the SARS epidemic in 2003. If you believe... Excuse me, I'm just so verklempt.
Yes. So if you believe that data,
choked up thinking about all this.
If you believe that data, maybe it's
down with
kind
the
of
touch of the coronavirus.
Right.
No, I mean honestly,
Please,
it's no laughing matter. I don't want to make light of it, but people do think that there is sort of a bottoming out, or a sort of plateauing in the number of new cases, and they're sort of expecting some sort of peak later this month. So there is a sense that we are getting some sort of containment.
Yeah, exactly. Bloomberg Stocks editor Dave Wilson, thank you so much for joining us here, and Kriti Gupta, markets live reporter for Bloomberg News, both joining us here, one big happy family in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio on this risk-on day. We have the stock market up off its highs, but still we have the S&P 500 up about 13 points, Dow up 190, NASDAQ up 30. And as we were talking with Kriti, looking at oil here, WTI crude, we're at $51.42 a barrel. That's up about 3% today.
Jim Karen at Morgan Stanley saying, what shape will the recovery take? V, U, bathtub, or L?
Okay, we'll go with it. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. to Nathan Hager for World and National Headlines. Nathan.
Paul, it's on to Nevada and South Carolina for the Democrats running for president after last night's New Hampshire primary win for Bernie Sanders and close second place finish for Pete Buttigieg.
We are not going to write off one vote, and we're not going to take one vote for granted.
Amy Klobuchar had a strong third place result. Greg Valliere is with AGF Investments.
The moderates are more numerous in the party, even in a liberal state like New Hampshire, at least from the Democrats' standpoint. I think that the moderates showed they have real strength.
And ahead of the Nevada caucus a week from Saturday, a union that represents about 60,000 hotel and casino workers in the Silver State is warning about Sanders' Medicare for All plan. A flyer from the Culinary Union says Sanders would end culinary health care. That's the union-negotiated health insurance plan for Nevada hotel and casino workers. Economists are raising their warnings about the coronavirus, with the death toll now past 1,100, confirmed infections close to 45,000. Dr. Anthony Fauci leads the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases.
When you look into monitoring of infections, you sometimes see it go up and down. I'm glad to see that it isn't greatly accelerating, but the numbers of cases each day still alarming.
President Trump will meet with New York Governor Andrew Cuomo to discuss the administration's plan to bar state residents from programs that allow travelers to breeze through airport, passport, and customs checks. A U.S. official says that meeting on the federal trusted traveler programs like Global Entry will happen tomorrow at the White House. Global News, 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg.
Revisions, return policies. There are so many ways to redo a decision.
What are the ramifications if she crumbles or doesn't crumble?
Do they have any path other than the courts?
Except here, we have to get it right the first time.
We always talk about the losers in a trade war. Are there winners?
So that you can too.
How does your modeling have to pivot to reflect a different scenario?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. You out-salesmaned the salesman. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll have the info you need to get more for your future. Go to aceyourretirement.org, because when it comes to speeding past financial challenges, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
All right, Stan, will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, and try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Oh.
Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Switch to 5G on Vodafone. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G by March 8th and get wireless Galaxy Buds Plus for free. With unlimited 5G data, you can post 108 megapixel photos and download videos impossibly fast. All on the UK's best mobile data network. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
5G subject to coverage in your area. MPerf test awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance. Minimum term applies. See vodafone.co.uk.
For gentlemen who value the quality of an exquisitely made shoe, Jones Bootmaker Master Shoemakers introduce the world-exclusive collection by Loke. Experience the comfort of the cushioned leather footbed and the sustainable, repairable Goodyear welted sole. The world-exclusive comfort collection by Jones Bootmaker and Loke, handmade in Britain. Available at Bow Lane, Broad Street, Fenchurch Street, German Street, Canary Wharf and stores nationwide. Or order online at jonesbootmaker.com.
This is our story. The Birds of Prey.
Roman is building an army. He's after all of us. We gotta clean the city from the inside out.
Critics are saying Margot Robbie is brilliant as Harley Quinn.
Hi, boys.
Birds of Prey is a fantastic assault on the senses. Brilliantly acted and very funny. 4 stars. Birds of Prey in cinemas now. Certificate 15.
I am a force for good.
I am a force for courage.
And for calm.
I am a force for safety.
For fairness. For leadership.
I am a force for the future.
For compassion.
For my community.
I am a police officer. And I am a force for all.
Be one of the 20,000 new police officers and be a force for all that you believe in. Search Join the Police.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All three major U.S. indices are up, with the S&P and Dow climbing to all-time highs again. This all after China's Hubei province reported the lowest number of new virus cases this month, and suspected infections on the mainland declined. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is up 0.5%, up 15. Dow's up 0.75%, up 218. And the NASDAQ is up 0.4%, up 40. The 10-year's down 8/32, the yield 1.62%. West Texas Intermediate's up 3.2% at 51.54 a barrel, while COMEX Gold is down 0.2% at 15.6750 an ounce. The dollar yen is at 110.05. The euro's $8.91, and the British pound is $29.58. Marathon Petroleum Speedway Gas Division, according to sources, has drawn interest from potential buyers, including the owner of convenience store chain 7-Eleven, as well as TDR Capital. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, with global yields at exceptionally low levels around the world, including some negative yield in places like Germany, Switzerland, Japan, where does a fixed income manager go for yield? I think our next guest can help us out here. Paul Breen, head of fixed income at Newton Investment Management, with about $66 billion under management. He's based in London, but joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio.
His last name is actually Breen.
Yeah, no? I was just going to let it go and just let it go.
I'm not going to let that go. How was it growing up with the last name Breen?
Challenging.
Yeah,
challenging. It's one of those names that people don't forget.
Right.
A lot of people just can't believe it's Breen. They always call me Brian.
I would embrace it.
The pressure to get good marks in school. I
should have been a surgeon. It would have made it so much easier.
Yeah, exactly. So, Paul, again, talk to us about kind of the fixed income markets. You're out there. You're looking for yield. Where do you go? What do you do? How do you frame it up for your portfolio?
Well, yeah, I mean, the first thing to say, obviously, yields aren't always returns. So we are using government bonds that perhaps do have very low yields. We try to steer clear of those negative yielders. I mean, there are alternatives to European yields. You've got obviously US yields, Australia, New Zealand, and a few. There are some European countries with positive yields. But there's also credit. There's emerging markets. We have strategies that are opportunistic, and we tend to shop around the globe. So we are looking for those markets that still have a positive yield, but also have the potential perhaps for yields to go lower. We don't see this environment changing anytime soon. We're not looking for yields to back up in any meaningful way. So this sort of search for yield, chase for returns is still going to be with us for a while.
Emerging markets was one call heading into this year that would be an area that would outperform, in particular, local currency emerging markets debt. The belief also hinging on the dollar continuing to weaken, or not continuing, starting to weaken, because we've seen it near the highs versus some peers. I'm just wondering, we're not seeing that. How much does that change your view on emerging markets?
From a tactical point of view, you've got to suggest that with things like the virus threat out there, with the geopolitical risk that's quite high, the dollar has the potential to stay firm. That is true. But is that going to change the interest rate outlook for some of those emerging market countries? Some of the reasons why you buy local currency emerging markets is because they can cut interest rates. It is because, of course, their currencies can appreciate over time. So strategically, we still like local currency markets. In fact, we're taking advantage of weakness to increase exposure. Tactically, we've also got dollars as well. So we have a sort of a barbell approach there.
So as you step back and think about, it's called 11 years into this economic cycle here in the United States, how do you think about allocating your fixed income portfolio between investment grade, maybe going out, high yield, taking some more risk? You mentioned, talked about emerging markets. How do you think about your allocation now?
Well, with the backdrop of a benign interest rate environment, as I say, an interest rate environment that's not going to change radically one way or the other, you can still chase after some of those opportunities, some of those spreads. So broad exposure to these markets, risk markets like high yield, I think is okay. But you have to be very selective. I think from a company point of view and from a sector point of view, the dispersion within credit is still there. There is a big difference between the ones that are okay and the ones that are not. We're seeing, as we saw last year, companies suffer when they miss earnings reports and P&L numbers, etc.
Are there any credit quality problems out there that you're seeing in your portfolio creeping up? Or, because again, kind of late in the cycle here, and it seems like you might have some credit quality issues.
Yeah, that is true. That's certainly keeping us not at our maximum exposure. I'd say it's an environment that does support risk-on trades, but we're going to be mindful of that possibility that it's a fragile economic environment. Therefore, it's a fragile environment for credit, and spreads are pretty tight. So we're balancing some of that exposure by having some safe haven assets like U.S. Treasuries and other government bonds with our credit exposure.
When was the last time that you changed your allocation around?
Well, the last couple of years have seen us being fairly dynamic. The strategy we run is called dynamic, and it's lived up to its name. 2018, we were very defensive in terms of interest rate risk and credit risk. Just brought down both of those levers, so exposure to both of those was at record lows. 2019, we went back the other way, so we scaled up our duration risk, interest rate risk, and also our credit risk by moving back into emerging markets, high yield, and also government bonds at the same time. 2020 is going to be a bit more of a carry environment, more an environment where you want to just hang on to those returns. You're not going to get big moves and be very particular about your security selection and your sector selection.
What could actually happen that would force you to rethink that?
The two outliers to that central Goldilocks environment are, of course, a recession. And the opposite, of course, is a pickup in inflation. That's just stating the obvious. But if we move back to a rising interest rate environment, as we saw in 2018, then, of course, fixed income markets are going to suffer. If we move to an environment of collapsing economies, you're going to see credit suffer in particular. Neither of those scenarios have particularly high weights at the moment. But what we're monitoring to see whether those two can be triggered is really China. The slowdown in economic growth in China before the virus is something that does concern us. That's the global manufacturing base, for instance. And then the other side of that is just the ramping up of potential fiscal spending leading to inflation, which is a longer-term story, not one that will hit this year, but something to constantly monitor.
Paul Breen, thank you so much for being with us. I got to say, I love your name. I think it's absolutely wonderful. Paul Breen is head of fixed income at Newton Investment Management, which is owned by BNY Mellon and oversees about $66 billion of assets firm-wide. Normally based in London, joining us here in our interactive broker studios. Definitely an interesting time to be investing in fixed income, where the income portion has been dropped off for a huge portion of markets globally. Talking of markets, we are looking at record highs, yet another day of records for the NASDAQ and the S&P. You're seeing bond yields come up, price down just a touch, but not the same sort of level of increase that you'd expect if it were truly risk on. I'm Lisa Abramowitz, along with my co-host and colleague Paul Sweeney. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks powering higher this morning. There are signs the coronavirus in China is slowing. Investors are also optimistic the global economy can weather the storm. Buyers are rushing into the housing market to take advantage of falling borrowing costs. Now they're facing rising prices. The median price of an existing single-family home gained 6.6% in the fourth quarter, hitting $274,900. That's according to the National Association of Realtors. Nissan isn't done going after former chairman Carlos Ghosn. The automaker has sued him for $91 million. Nissan said it's trying to recover monetary damages he inflicted on the company. Ghosn was arrested in 2018 on charges of financial wrongdoing. And new owners for Forever 21. A bankruptcy judge said he'll approve the sale of the apparel chain to its mall owners, Simon Property and Brookfield Property, and Authentic Brands. The sale will preserve about 25,000 jobs at Forever 21 stores. Courtney Donahoe, Bloomberg Radio.
Welcome back to the Dog Show. Up next, we have Satchmo. Satchmo is a member of the Shelter Pet Group.
That's right, a group known especially for their couch-snuggling, ball-chasing, face-licking, and, of course, companionship. Now, let's see him in action. Look how he makes eye contact with his person. That's actually known as the
How intuitive. And now he appears to be excitedly turning in circles.
that happens Dad's so common with this group.
But really, the best way to know an amazing shelter pet like Satchmo is to meet one.
Visit the Shelter Pet Project.org today. Adopt.
Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? What where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
The Mona Lisa is only 30 inches tall. The world's hottest chili? 1 inch. And Napoleon? Taller than a Great Dane, but only by 71 centimetres. Who says small can't make an impact? The Peugeot 108 Allure is now available for just $159 per month, with $159 initial rental. Our small but mighty car that doesn't have to cost you a small fortune. Peugeot Motor Company PLC, a credit broker not a lender, will introduce you to PSA Finance UK Limited. Personal finance lease, 48 months at $159, 18 plus, guarantee may be required. Terms, eligibility and return conditions apply. You will not own the car.
Peoples of London, are you like Sergey, working your paws off from 9 to 5, then cooking for whole family? Well, I, Alexander, have taken responsibility for tonight's splendid evening meal.
Ooh, let me guess, Meerkat Meals?
Of course, you know how I roll. Get 2 for 1 on food with Meerkat Meals at your local favorites, like Leadbelly's Bar and Kitchen. When you buy through Compare the Market. Qualifying purchase, app only, 2 for 1 on selected food, participating restaurants, a la carte only, Sunday to Thursday, T's and C's and exclusions apply.
Good morning, this is your Southern service to London Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What C sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking, and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Dribbles with the right hand. Now he attacks. Dribbles with the left hand. Drives, goes up off the glass, banks it in!
The 2020 NBA All-Star Game is live on TuneIn Premium.
Stop with the right hand! Because this thing is over!
Catch every fast break, fadeaway, and alley-oop as Team LeBron and Team Giannis go head-to-head in Chicago. Which star will shine the brightest? Who will be named this year's MVP? Find out Sunday at 8 Eastern with ESPN Radio's live coverage of the NBA All-Star Game on TuneIn. Search Premium to upgrade today.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn. When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow and tune in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
And reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
3, 2, 1. Oh no. Which button am I?
When every second counts, you can't wing it.
Guys, a little help up here?
In a home fire, you may have less than 2 minutes to get out. So make a family home fire escape plan. Then practice home fire drills at least twice a year so everyone knows what to do when they hear. Prepare your family at ready.gov/fire drill. Brought to you by FEMA, the Ad Council, and Make Safe Happen.
Sometimes the simplest method is the best one.
I think even I could figure it out today.
Balance of Power with David Weston.
You had a high estimate. It beat your high estimate.
Weekdays at noon Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, we're going to get the latest on what is going on at the Department of Justice over the Roger Stone sentencing. We'll get the latest there. Plus, we're going to speak to someone from Philip Morris International on the tobacco business, but specifically on some of the less harmful smoking products that Philip Morris and others in the industry are introducing. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Well, I'm calling my stock screen this morning the Emerald Isle because it's green, really green. Stocks are up to records again. European and Asian stocks were higher as well. Optimism grows that the global economy can recover from the impact of the coronavirus. Amid signs the spread of the illness is abating. Crude oil's up too. Treasuries are down. James Bevan, CCLA Investment Management, tells Bloomberg growthiness, in his opinion, is cheap right now.
And I'm also telling you that if you would deduct the valuation of the top 6 expensive stocks in the US market, the average multiple falls from the 18.5 times that everybody regards as super inflated to 16.7 times, which I would suspect most people will regard as reasonable in the context of this climate of very low growth, low inflation, low money rates. So for me, this is unambiguously good news for stock market bulls.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 0.5%, up 17. Dow's up 0.75%, up 222, and the Nasdaq's up 0.4%, up 40. The 10-year is down 7/30 seconds. The yield is 1.62%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 3% at 51.48 a barrel, with COMEX gold down just about 0.1% at 15.6880 an ounce. The dollar yen 110.05. The euro's $1.0893, and the British pound's $1.2964. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
Bloomberg opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
You know, we have a tension, Paul, on this show where there's a lot going on in Washington, D.C., and it's hard to know when it crosses over into the realm of markets and the broader zeitgeist of the United States beyond the Beltway. Noah Feldman joining us on a story that does percolate on that very much so. Noah Feldman, professor of law at Harvard University, also a Bloomberg opinion columnist. And Professor, I'd love to get your take on what just happened with the Department of Justice coming in, making a recommendation to revise the sentencing recommendation by prosecutors in the Roger Stone case after President Trump tweeted about it, and then the subsequent resignation of those prosecutors. Can you just give us a sense, how big of a deal is this?
It's a very big deal when it comes to the independence of the Department of Justice from political influence, especially from the president. So what you have to understand is that, under our Constitution, the Department of Justice isn't an independent agency. But because everyone understands that if you don't have real independence in the people who investigate and prosecute crime, you won't live under the rule of law, there's a strong tradition of the executive branch respecting the judgments of the Department of Justice. And what's bad here is not just that the Department of Justice reversed a recommendation for a strong sentence by its prosecutors, but that they did it after a presidential tweet and in a case of Roger Stone, who lied to Congress to protect the president. So it really looks like the Department of Justice is just knuckling under to Donald Trump, no matter what the Department of Justice may claim to the contrary.
So clearly some pressure being applied by Attorney General William Barr. How uncommon is it for that to occur, for the Attorney General to insert himself or herself into a DOJ proceeding like this?
Well, it's extremely uncommon for it to happen in this way after the fact. So you might imagine in a very, very high-profile case, you would go through the chain, and someone would say, well, let's check with the main justice and maybe the attorney general before we ask for a sentence. But what's extremely rare is that when the department has filed a document with the court saying this is how many years we think this defendant deserves, that the attorney general would then come in after the fact and after a presidential tweet and say, we're changing our mind, we're reversing ourselves, we're retracting that memo and putting in a new one. That undercuts the independence of the prosecutors, and that's why those 4 prosecutors all stepped down from this case. It's essentially the closest that a government employee can come to an official protest. It's a way of saying, okay, if you're going to do this over our heads, then we want no part of it.
Noah, can you give us a sense in the bigger picture, given your experience clerking on the Supreme Court, given your experience studying history and at Harvard, just getting a sense of the potential implications here? I mean, you said it's a really big deal, but what does that mean?
What it means is that this president is now completely, feeling his capacity to do whatever he wants in the aftermath of the failed impeachment. He's going to be able to do whatever he wants. But more importantly, I think, even more importantly than that, in the long run, it undercuts public trust in the FBI and the Department of Justice. And it undercuts the basic idea that we live in a country where you won't be imprisoned or prosecuted or sentenced based on who your friends are or whether you're in with the administration, but rather based on whether you've broken the law and how serious your crimes are. If we lose as a public our faith in that, then that deeply undercuts the capacity of our country to go forward as a rule of law country.
Losing the faith in it, but there is a pushback that people have to this that is, it's always been this way. It's just that President Trump is up front with it, and there's less subtlety about some of the machinations behind the scenes. I mean, we certainly have heard that with respect to some of the travel bans and other things that they have done. Is that the case? I mean, that sort of...
I don't think so. I don't think the history bears out that claim. Certainly in all of the years that I've been exposed to the Department of Justice and had, close colleagues and friends who work there, there's been an extraordinarily strong tradition of prosecutorial independence. And that's been deeply eroded throughout this administration, but especially now. And you have to add to that the fact that this prosecution was started by Robert Mueller's team. They filed this prosecution. And indeed, several of the prosecutors who were still involved were from Mueller's team. That was supposed to be a special prosecutor who was independent, who wasn't pushed around by the Attorney General or by the President. And so that was the whole point of it. And to undercut that really doesn't have a precedent. It basically says special prosecutor isn't actually all that independent.
Noah, just in the next 30 seconds, what's the role, if any, oversight-wise, that Congress could, exercise?
The most that Congress can do at this stage is call for an investigation. They can ask the Attorney General and the U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. to come and testify before it and ask them how the decision process went and create greater transparency around this. But there's really no other institutional check available, and the ultimate check, which is impeachment, has already been used, and it didn't work.
Noah Feldman, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate your perspective. Noah Feldman is a professor at law at Harvard University, also a Bloomberg opinion columnist. He also is a witness in the House impeachment investigation and was a clerk to the U.S. Supreme Court, Justice David Souter, so lots of experience with the law within the Beltway. You can read Noah's work on Bloomberg Opinion at bloomberg.com/opinion and on the terminal at OPIN Go. Lots of great work that those folks do, kind of peeling back the onion on a lot of important issues. Yeah, indeed. Meanwhile, sticking with politics, just to mention the New Hampshire kind of fallout from the primary there, it does look like Bernie Sanders taking the front-runner status, at least for the moment. But more importantly, and I think this is really telling, is that turnout was a record in the New Hampshire primary. So it raises a question of how much energy there is behind that. Absolutely. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. for world and national headlines with Nathan Hager. Nathan.
Well, after the New Hampshire primary result, Paul and Lisa, more than one Democrat can claim momentum. Bernie Sanders did come away with first place, but he was followed closely by Pete Buttigieg. Just about 1 percentage point separated the two. A surging Amy Klobuchar came in third place last night. Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden were a distant fourth and fifth place, respectively, but they are vowing to press on with their campaigns. Andrew Yang ended his last night along with Michael Bennet. And while Yang isn't endorsing anyone yet, he says he is open to being someone's running mate.
I'm already on the record, too, saying if I can solve these problems as someone's vice president, a member of an administration, We just need to start solving these problems for the next generation.
As for the delegate count, Pete Buttigieg leads that at 22, followed by Bernie Sanders at 21 delegates. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is pushing back at an effort to limit President Trump's war powers against Iran. Bloomberg's Amy Morris reports from Washington.
McConnell is urging senators to reject the measure that would require the president to get congressional authorization for any military action against Iran, arguing that the bill would limit the military's flexibility. 4 Republican senators are co-sponsoring the resolution, along with Virginia Democratic Senator Tim Kaine. The House passed a similar measure last month, and the Senate is expected to pass it too, but the president is also likely to veto this. In Washington, I'm Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
The Trump administration's withdrawing the nomination of a former federal prosecutor to oversee sanctions at the Treasury Department. Jesse Liu had been the U.S. attorney in charge of the office that prosecuted Roger Stone. Global news on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
The Bloomberg Business of Sports.
Go courtside with the NBA on TuneIn. With the NBA on TuneIn, hear your favorite team and players take on their biggest rivals during the biggest games throughout the year, including regular season showdowns, the 2020 All-Star Game, and the NBA Finals in June, featuring the home and away calls for all 30 teams. Plus, with the NBA On Demand, relive the best moments of the season by listening to the past games in their entirety. Listen to the NBA all season long on TuneIn.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
The comedian Louis C.K. is on tour now for the first time since his sexual misconduct against other comedians was brought to light. This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, I'll talk with critic Hilton Alls about how Louis C.K. is addressing the issue in his act or not addressing it. And more broadly, we'll talk about when and how a disgraced performer should come back before the public. Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
Advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the sixth straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us number 1 in client support, number 1 in firm leadership, number 1 in operational support, number 1 in compensation, number 1 in professional development support, and number 1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Coronavirus worries go down, stocks go up to record levels. Although more than 44,000 people have been infected with the coronavirus globally, the spread of the disease does appear to be slowing, according to China's National Health Commission. We check the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio, with the S&P 500 up 0.4%, up 14. The Dow's up 0.6%, up 190, now off earlier highs. Nasdaq's up 0.4%, up 35. The 10-year's down 8/30 seconds. The yield 1.62%. West Texas Intermediate crude's up 2.8% at 51.35 a barrel, and COMEX gold is a little changed at 15.6920 an ounce. The dollar yen 110.03. The euro's $1.892, and the British pound $1.2968. A deep slump in euro area industrial output at the end of last year highlights the scale of the challenge the sector will face this year. The 2.1% drop, the steepest in almost 4 years, raises doubts about a meaningful rebound in momentum. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, as people around the world smoke fewer and fewer cigarettes, big tobacco companies are trying to introduce new products to make up for that. Moira Gilchrist, Vice President, Strategic and Scientific Communications for Philip Morris International, joins us on the phone. So, Moira, thanks so much for joining us. At Philip Morris International, obviously you guys have that trend where people are smoking fewer traditional cigarettes on a global basis. What are some of the products that your company has that are bringing into the market to try to kind of offset that decline?
Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. Well, first of all, we shouldn't forget that there are still more than 1 billion men and women around the world who smoke cigarettes today. So what our approach is to provide better alternatives to those men and women who otherwise will simply continue to smoke. So although people are quitting in large numbers, there's still 9 out of 10 people in any given year who continue to use cigarettes. So our approach is to offer those people with better products that are scientifically substantiated.
So, Dr. Gilchrist, what is the latest when it comes to scientific studies of vaping and just how much less bad it is for people than smoking traditional cigarettes?
So there's a huge huge body of scientific evidence that's available, and I would encourage people really to dive into it and look at it in detail. So the evidence shows that as soon as you stop burning tobacco, you produce far, far lower levels of harmful and potentially harmful chemicals. And that's the approach that we're using for all of our smoke-free products, whether it be heating tobacco rather than burning it, or e-vapor products that you may be more familiar with. They all work on the same principle that you're not combusting tobacco, and therefore you have much, much lower levels of harmful chemicals. And the scientific evidence, the body of scientific evidence is continuing to grow and show that these products really are a much better choice than continuing to smoke. So we're encouraging governments and public health bodies all around the world to look at the evidence and help that to guide regulation and communications to consumers as well.
So, Moira, I know for Philip Morris International, it's one of the products is IQOS. Tell us, how does that product work, and how is it? Because it is a tobacco product. So how is that product different from, say, a traditional cigarette?
So it still uses tobacco, so the same types of tobacco that are used in cigarettes. But the big difference is that, of course, it's not burning the tobacco, so it's not producing the large quantity of harmful and potentially harmful chemicals that burnt cigarettes do. So we've done a huge scientific assessment. We've put that scientific evidence in front of FDA and other governments around the world. We've submitted it to the WHO as well. And that evidence, I think, is extremely promising. It shows that, not only do we have much lower levels of harmful chemicals, but we also have promising clinical results in adult smokers who switch as well.
Dr. Gilchrist, how do you draw the distinction between not as bad and not bad for you? I mean, I'm talking about vaping, and we've heard all the controversy around flavored tobacco being marketed to children. How do you sort of, in your mind, make it sort of a healthy alternative?
So let's be clear, and I look at this as a scientist. These products are not risk-free, and they're intended only for adults who otherwise would continue to use cigarettes. And I think we need to be very clear about that. They're not for people who don't smoke, and they certainly are not for youth. And we've been very, very clear about that in the 52 markets where we have our products available. So I think we need to focus on whether the product is less harmful than the option that adult smokers will otherwise most likely do, and that's continue to smoke. So our scientific studies show that these range of smoke-free products really are a much better choice than continuing to use cigarettes. And again, we would just encourage governments, we would encourage WHO, who've taken, I think, a very conservative stance about these products, to look at the evidence much more carefully and help that to guide governments around the world in creating better regulation that can help encourage adult smokers to make better choices and switch to a better product if they're not going to quit.
So, Moira, give us a sense of kind of what the regulatory framework is under which some of these products, whether it's IQOS or some of these other vaping products, operate under. What is the regulatory oversight globally?
So it's a mix, a real mix. I think if we look in the United States, for example, there's science-based regulation. So FDA has authority to review the science and make a decision of whether a product is, as they call it, appropriate for the protection of public health. So that looks at whether it's likely that adult smokers who switch to the product will gain some kind of benefit, and also making sure that there won't be unintended consequences like use by youth, for example, or by non-smokers. So that's science-based regulation, and that's something as a scientist I absolutely encourage. But then if you look across the world, there isn't a harmonized regulatory framework, and this is where bodies like the World Health Organization can really play a role in order to focus the world, focus smokers on what the scientific evidence shows, and encourage regulation that can help switch those who don't quit to better alternatives as quickly as possible.
Dr. Gilchrist, I just want to get your sense as the Vice President in the strategic aspect of Philip Morris. Philip Morris has really placed its future in heated tobacco and vaping, saying that that's where the growth is going to be. Just how much is that the future, and cigarettes, just traditional cigarettes, not?
Well, it absolutely is our future. We're transforming the whole company, our whole business, and as quickly as we possibly can. And we announced in our year-end results last week that we now have 14 million global users of IQOS, and 10 million of those have fully switched. And already only in 2019, nearly a fifth of our revenue was coming from these smoke-free alternatives, which is up from almost zero in 2015. So I think we're making tremendous progress, but we need help. We need help of governments. We need help of the scientific community to really look at the evidence and help to communicate to adult smokers that there are better choices available today.
Dr. Moira Gilchrist, thank you so much for being with us, Vice President of the Strategic and Scientific Communications at Philip Morris International, based in Switzerland, talking about that transformation that we're seeing within the tobacco world as people are smoking less traditional cigarettes and vaping more.
Yeah, interesting. And it's, there's heated tobacco versus vaping. There's all kinds of different technologies out there. And I think as, Dr. Gilchrist was mentioning, that I think the market from their perspective is, existing smokers, maybe smokers that are looking for a different alternative, perhaps a less harmful alternative. And, from a business perspective, from an economics perspective for these companies to offset, that secular decline in cigarettes.
Although I will say, as far as the studies go, there is a big question, again, how you delineate between better for and safe or not bad for you kind of trends. Looking at Philip Morris so far year to date, over the past year, shares up 15%, year to date up 3.4%. I'm Lisa Abramowitz with my co-host and colleague Paul Sweeney. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Listen, we know you're not here for ads, but while you're waiting for the music, cybercriminals might be waiting for you to expose your login credentials and payment information over Wi-Fi. Help keep your online activity private with Norton 360. It gives you multiple layers of protection, including secure VPN with bank-grade encryption, device security, password manager, and PC cloud backup. Go to uk.norton.com to get all-in-one protection starting at $24.99 for your first year. Terms apply. That's uk.norton.com.
Wouldn't it be nice to keep things you normally lose? Your favourite scarf, your train of thought, or your mobile data. Because with most other networks, you get to the end of the month and your data is, well, never to be seen again. But unlike anyone else, with Sky Mobile, you can roll and keep all your unused data for up to 3 years. Sky Mobile. Hello, possible.
Full terms and conditions at sky.com/mobile.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Is there any bank right now in the U.S. that you think is a buy?
Do you think Chairman Powell has lost the market?
Jeff Bezos is no dope. What's the big ka-ching?
The big question, I think, for investors is free cash flow.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
The U.S. tariffs actually hurt both China and the U.S.
Large strategics are looking to either buy or invest in innovation.
Soybeans and corn have been basically at or below the cost of production for about 4 or 5 years.
So what we see more balls, more yield.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Coming up, we've tracked down Bloomberg's Kevin Cirilli. We're going to get his take post-mortem on the New Hampshire primary results and what's coming up next for the Democratic candidates. Plus, we're going to chat with Chris McCann, CEO of 1-800-Flowers.com, on the business of Valentine's Day. But first, let's go to Greg Jarrett of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Some intraday records as equities went up, tracking the European and Asian stocks higher. It's all about optimism about the global economy and that it can recover from the impact of the coronavirus amid signs the Spread of the illness is slowing. Stephanie Kelly, Aberdeen Standard Investments senior political economist, tells us now the global investors are keeping an eye on the U.S. election.
It's fair to say Sanders met expectations last night, but he didn't beat them. You look then to someone like Klobuchar, and again, investors are kind of, I think, broadly speaking, would be more for a kind of a Klobuchar or a Biden or a Buttigieg. I don't think they have a strong preference so long as it's a relative moderate who's not going to be hugely disruptive.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 0.4%, up 14. Dow's up 0.7%, up 192, and the Nasdaq's up 0.4%, up 40. The 10 years down 8/30 seconds, the yield 1.62%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 2.6% at 51.27 a barrel, with COMEX gold little changed at 15.70.30 an ounce. The dollar yen 110.01, the British pound 129.77, and the euros at 108.97. Dow Jones reports Boeing has fired a mid-level executive in charge of pilots who wrote internal email messages among themselves that have embarrassed the aerospace giant as it struggles to get the 737 MAX flying again. Right now, Boeing is up 0.8%. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Bloomberg Markets continues with Amy. That's Lisa.
It's okay.
And Paul.
You can call me what you want to call me. I like Amy. It's a good name. I will say, Greg, thank you. I will say that right now, taking a look at small and mid-cap shares, perhaps today, will be the day. I was thinking maybe. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks Editor. No, off earlier highs.
Well, they're pretty much keeping up, at least, with shares of larger companies. That's the difference. Russell 2000 index up about 0.4%. The S&P 500 is also higher by about 0.4%. One of the Russell's biggest gains belongs to Noble Corp, whose ticker is NE. The oil driller has climbed 21%. Noble signed a multi-year contract with ExxonMobil for 3 drilling rigs off the coast of South America. And I should point out, Noble trading at about 97 cents a share, which helps explain why that deal is so big for the company. Computer programs and systems, ticker CPSI, has risen 21.5%. The healthcare technology provider posted fourth quarter earnings and revenue that beat analyst average estimates in Bloomberg survey. He had a similar story at the office supply maker ACCO Brands, the ticker ACCO, and that stock's up 14.5%. Now, the Russell's steepest drop belongs to Polarity TE, ticker PTE. The developer of former human tissue has tumbled more than 46% after a sale of stock and warrants that raised $25 million. The sale was equivalent to as much as a 44% stake. And then there's Bed Bath & Beyond, ticker BBBY. It's down almost 26%. Oof. The home furnishings retailer sales for December and January fell 5.4% at stores open more than a year.
Bloomberg Stocks Editor Dave Wilson, thank you so much for that report on the small and mid-cap stocks. Well, a big night for Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire as he wins that primary yesterday. We'll get the post-mortem on everything that happened in New Hampshire and what's coming up for the Democrats with our good friend Kevin Cirilli, Chief Washington correspondent for Bloomberg Radio and TV. Also, host of Bloomberg Sound On Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, D.C. Kevin, I'm not sure where you are between Washington and New Hampshire, but we appreciate you hopping on with us. What are your key takeaways from last night?
Well, 3 things. First and foremost, Bernie Sanders winning, sealing the deal. Look, he's got momentum. He's got the big mo. Secondly, I would say former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg also got some momentum out of this and really jockeying to be the centrist moderate candidate of choice. But finally, there's a new centrist on the scene, and that's Senator Amy Klobuchar. She beat expectations. She pulled a third-place victory, beating not just Senator Elizabeth Warren, who had lost in her state, Massachusetts, is right nearby, but also former Vice President Joe Biden. Now, he says he's in this for the long run. He's dug in South Carolina. But the outside force of former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg laying large, casting a shadow against Biden.
And, of course, Michael Bloomberg, founder and majority owner of Bloomberg LP, owner of this radio station and Bloomberg News. I'm just wondering, record turnout for the New Hampshire primaries. How significant is that?
Well, that's big. I can hear the sigh of relief from Democratic National Committee Chairman Tom Perez. Because a lot of folks are wondering what the heck happened in Iowa, not just with the debacle of that app, but also with the low turnout. So, it's good to see that turnout number was up, according to the Democratic sources that I speak with. But the enthusiasm from President Trump and his supporters was also palpable. He had a rally the other night. Mine was stretching out the door.
Interesting, Kevin. Are you surprised at all at the strength of Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire in particular? Given the populist nature of his platform, do you expect the Democrats to eventually come back to the center?
Look, in terms of the power of Bernie Sanders, I mean, he's done this before 4 years ago, but also he has a grassroots effort that is really unrivaled by any of the other candidates. I think you saw Biden try to tap into Obama's coalition, but it failed because he's not Obama. And so I think what Bernie has is similar to what Obama had when Obama ran, and that his supporters are activated at the grassroots level. They have outside progressive groups that are really backing him. I'm not ready to write off Biden yet. Nevada could look good for him. He could have a comeback. But for all the talk about Iowa and New Hampshire not mattering, we're all talking about the demise of Joe Biden, which is why it matters.
Well, but there's a question also about how much momentum different candidates are going to get from New Hampshire, and more importantly, how representative New Hampshire is of Democrats nationwide. Do we have a sense of that?
Yeah. Well, look, in terms of diversity, South Carolina and Nevada are much more diverse than Iowa and New Hampshire. But here's what I just find fascinating. This race, the crux of his campaign was that he could win white working class voters. Well, wait a minute. He lost white working class voters in Iowa. He lost white working class voters in New Hampshire. So, I mean, now he's saying that he's the candidate for African Americans. We'll see. But, I mean, it really goes against the original narrative that the Biden world had campaign. And the exit poll note, I would note, Bernie Sanders beat Joe Biden amongst moderates in New Hampshire. Now, Bernie Sanders lost moderates to Klobuchar and Buttigieg, but it's still interesting that Sanders beat Biden and moderates in the Granite State.
Kevin Cirilli, we'll let you go try to catch up on sleep. Yeah, there's no way he's sleeping ever again. Kevin Cirilli, Bloomberg Chief Washington correspondent and host of Bloomberg Sound On, speaking to us from the road. He's been crisscrossing the country and tracking all of the machinations of the Democratic Party ahead of the primary in a variety of states coming up. South Carolina really looming large in particular for Joe Biden. He seems to be staking quite a bit on that.
Yeah, and interesting. Kevin made a comment earlier this morning that, if it were to be Bernie Sanders on the Democratic side, you would have kind of two populists in President Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders kind of going against each other, which would just be, just extraordinary from a political standpoint. So lots of room to go, lots of time before that, of course.
And it's interesting to me that a lot of people are saying the crossover vote is between Sanders and Trump, not necessarily a moderate candidate. Meanwhile, in markets, we are seeing new record highs in the NASDAQ and S&P. NASDAQ up 0.5 percentage point, same on the S&P, as people take a deep breath of fresh air.
Yes,
relief,
exactly.
Breath of relief. Wow. English, that's the first language here. As with respect to the coronavirus. Right now, let's head down to 99 Studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager with World and National Headlines. Nathan.
Well, Lisa, those markets may be breathing that sigh of relief, but health experts are warning against complacency. Dr. Anthony Fauci with the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases tells Bloomberg, with a coronavirus death toll now past 1,100 and confirmed infections close to 45,000, those numbers may be understating the case.
The overall mortality, counting just the people who come to the attention of the medical community, is about 2.4%, which is very high compared to something like seasonal influenza, which is only 0.1%.
Almost all the deaths from the novel coronavirus have been in China. The 2020 census is just about a month away now, and the Census Bureau is facing serious questions about whether it's ready.
The administration's preparations for the census have been woefully inadequate. Whether through incompetence or intentional action, this administration's failures risk causing grave harm to this year's census.
Democrat Carolyn Maloney is chairing a House Oversight Committee hearing on census preparations with a new report from the Government Accountability Office saying the Bureau of the Census is behind schedule when it comes to recruiting workers and faces significant cybersecurity challenges. Pope Francis has sidestepped the question of allowing married men to become priests to fill a shortfall in the Amazon. In an eagerly awaited document, the Pope didn't mention a recommendation from bishops in that region to consider ordaining married men or women deacons in a part of the world where some people go without hearing Mass for months, if not years. Global news on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg.
If you promise to cover the latest financial and business news from Asia,
we're talking about social enterprises in Asian countries
with expert analysts who really understand Asia.
Aren't you encouraged with respect to U.S.-China trade?
Then you must be us.
Tell us about the trend within this part of the world.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
What sort of fiscal stimulus do you think we'll see?
Tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You're fierce. You take care of business and don't hold back. Taking care of your health shouldn't be any different. You know when something's off. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, and rashes. Listen to your body. It could be lupus. We're here to help you take control. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
In-depth.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Hey, have you heard? The Mayor of London has launched his latest van scrappage scheme to help tackle London's toxic air. Small businesses or sole traders like me with a polluting van could now get £7,000, which you could use to trade up to a Euro 6 vehicle. And you could get an extra £2,500 towards running costs if you go electric. The scheme is now even easier to qualify for, and it's open to any businesses with up to 50 employees, like mine. So, I'm going to search TfL Scrappage to see if I'm eligible and apply. You should do the same. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Switch to 5G on Vodafone. Pre-order the new Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G by March 8th and get wireless Galaxy Buds Plus for free. With unlimited 5G data, you can post 108 megapixel photos and download videos impossibly fast. All on the UK's best mobile data network. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
5G subject to coverage in your area. MPerf test awarded Vodafone Best 2019 Mobile Internet Performance. Minimum term applies. See Vodafone.co.uk.
For gentlemen who value the quality of an exquisitely made shoe, Jones Bootmaker Master Shoemakers introduce the world-exclusive collection by Loke. Experience the comfort of the cushioned leather footbed and the sustainable, repairable Goodyear welted sole. The world-exclusive comfort collection by Jones Bootmaker and Loke, handmade in Britain. Available at Bow Lane, Broad Street, Fenchurch Street, German Street, Canary Wharf and stores nationwide. Or order online at jonesbootmaker.com.
I've got my own place now, Money. My parents put up the 10% security.
And when I keep up my repayments, they get it back with interest in 5 years from Barclays. And now we can do whatever we want. Right, Dave? We don't have to tiptoe up the stairs. I can paint the living room purple. Don't look at me like that, money. It's my house. Barclays Family Springboard Mortgage. Make money work for you.
Your home may be repossessed if mortgage payments are missed. Deposit returned with interest after 5 years if no repayments missed. Subject to application, financial circumstances and borrowing history. T's and C's apply.
Rita's Rowdy Enchiladas.
Every time the kids are together, it's always the same. Never a moment's peace. Didn't take me long to work out the trick, though. Shredded chicken and black bean enchiladas with lime, oregano, and my little secret. A bit of smoke and spice with chipotle paste. Hear that? Never failed yet.
Make Rita's Rowdy Enchiladas tonight with Tesco British Chicken. Food Love Stories, brought to you by Tesco.
Do you go on the same holiday every year? To the same country, in the same hotel, with the same sea view, visit the same ancient monuments, lay by the same dolphin-shaped pool, meet the same Barrys and Sandras, and wear the same Hawaiian shirt that you'd never wear at home? Then maybe it's time to switch it up. Starting with the all-new Vauxhall Corsa, with its bold styling and up to 70 miles per gallon. To switch it up, visit your local Vauxhall dealership or search New Corsa. Official WLTP test figures for comparison purposes only. Real-world figures may vary.
Good morning, this is your Southern service to London Victoria. Join in our onboard quiz. Here's our next clue. What sea sounds like a handheld party food but keeps you dry and protected from the rain? Not canapes, canopies.
At Southern Railway, we're investing over £7 million into making improvements for you, like canopies, cycle parking and new platform lighting across more of our stations. Find out more and book your tickets at southernrailway.com. Southern Railway, we're with you.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
The S&P and Dow hit all-time highs today as investors draw comfort from a drop in the number of new cases of coronavirus infections in China. We look at those numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 0.5%, up 15. The Dow's up 0.6%, up 185. The Nasdaq's up 0.6%, up 54. The 10-year is down 830 seconds, the yield 1.62%. West Texas Intermediate crude's up 2.2% at $51.04 a barrel, with COMEX gold little changed at $15.70.30 an ounce. The dollar yen 110.05, the euro $1.894, and the British pound $1.2975. Emilio Lozoya, a key figure during Mexico's oil opening as Pemex chief executive officer, was arrested in Malaga, Spain today in the most high-profile detention under President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's push against corruption. Lozoya, who ran Mexico State Oil Company until 2016, was on the run since an arrest warrant was issued against him last year. He's being investigated for alleged corruption, also known as La Mordida. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
'Tis the season of love and affection and collective guilt and pressure to get something for your significant other. It is Valentine's Day coming up on Friday. Are you doing anything, Paul?
I'm sure we are. Yes, actually, Eagles concert.
That's
with
very
the family,
cool.
yeah.
With the family, okay. Well, it is a question, what is sort of the appropriate gift? I will say that my older son even asked me that at one point, and I thought, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm already having this conversation, but joining us now, someone probably could have weighed in a bit better than I did. Chris McCann, President and Chief Executive Officer of 1-800-Flowers.com, Inc., based in Long Island, here with us in our Interactive Brokers studios. Is flowers still the go-to thing? Is that what people go for on Valentine's Day?
Valentine's Day is just such a great day, and when you really look at it being the holiday of love, as you put it,
it is for you because it accounts for a significant portion of your sales, right?
So yes, flowers are the go-to gift, the must-have gift, especially if you really want.
There you go.
If you want to express yourself and connect with so many important people, especially your significant other. Roses say it all.
That's still the go-to.
Or an Eagles concert.
Yeah, that's still the go-to.
No, but you still have to have the roses before you go to the Eagle concert.
Okay. What about some of the new stuff that you
like,
do?
no.
What's some of the new products or something that people are doing today that maybe they didn't do 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, one of the things that we do is to make sure that we have accessible price points for everything. So roses are the most dominant flower and the most popular flower for Valentine's Day. We bring in other things, like, for example, even preserved roses. So we have these magnificent roses, they're called, which come in this nice round box or heart-shaped box, and they'll last you for over 6 months.
Okay, can I be a little cynical here? I'm sorry. How did this even get started? This thing where people are supposed to go out and buy things for their significant others on Valentine's Day.
Well, it's the Feast of St. Valentine.
Right.
And it was all about love and romance. But what we love about it, really, is that it's expanded beyond that. So we're now people, and you see the growth in average spend according to the National Retail Federation, where you're seeing growth because people are buying more to express themselves to family members, co-workers, friends, not just a significant other. Of course, a spouse or a significant other still accounts for about 52% of that spend. But we need to do that. We need to express ourselves.
Wait, this is really interesting. Hang on. So 52% is for the significant other. How has that changed over time? How much more have sort of friends, coworkers? Really, people are buying coworkers?
So that stayed about the
now?
same. Yes, flowers and gifts, digital greeting cards if you just want to do something simple, and you could do that with some e-cards from 1-800-Flowers, of course. But really, where we're seeing the growth in the category is from more and more connections. People need to manage relationships on a broad network, not just the romantic relationship that you have. And we are a relationship company.
So how do you manage like the surge in volume and demand on a day like Mother's Day or Valentine's Day? Is it I mean, I would think that'd be a kind of a logistical struggle.
It's wildly complex. The good news is we've been doing this for over 40 years now, and we have a bunch of people that have been with us a long time, and then we complement that staff with new people all the time. I'm really, really proud of the team, the way we execute, especially if you look at our results coming out of this first half of year. The execution was phenomenal. We grew the top line by 7%, but we had increased the guidance for the second half of the year on EPS from a growth rate of 8 to 10% to 15 to 17% because of the way we're executing and showing leverage on our operating platform.
Paul, have you ever bought flowers for any of your coworkers?
Sure. Coworkers, no.
Have you ever bought a Valentine's gift for any of your coworkers?
No.
I've actually got a list of names from my kids' schools so that I'm supposed to give out Valentines to everyone at school with their names on it, and that's a thing that's done. And everybody, and my kids always get mad if it's not a sufficient thing.
Well, how about chocolate-covered berries for a coworker from Sherry's Berries? A company
sounds great, Paul.
Yes, exactly.
A company we acquired this past August, so just in time for Valentine's.
But I am wondering about delivery right now. How challenging is it, given that there is a competitive landscape with something that rhymes with Schmamazon.com? That's kind of, the big player here.
As we look at deliveries, I think the floral network that we have, BloomNet, has always been in the same-day delivery business. So we've been out in front of that curve for a long time. But one of the things that we're seeing that's making it even better for us and the retail florists to make those deliveries is the onslaught of new delivery companies, whether that be companies like a DoorDash or a Deliv or some of these other third-party delivery companies. So we have access to those companies as well as our own networks of delivery personnel. So it's actually making it better for us, even though we've been the pioneer in same-day delivery.
Well, looking at your company, I was just looking at the financials on the Bloomberg terminal, and you're a lot more than a flower company. I mean, it's the gift. I mean, so what else besides flowers kind of drives your business?
Well, that's what I was going to recommend also for Valentine's Day. Besides the berries, maybe a nice donut bouquet from Harry and David.
Okay.
So we've moved into the gourmet food category over the past number of years because that's what our customers tell us they're using to express and connect with the important people in their lives. So Harry and David, Cheryl's Cookies, 1-800-Baskets, Fruit Bouquets, Sherry's Berries, the Popcorn Factory, a couple of others, to the point where that's more than half of our business today.
Paul, what would you want to get for Valentine's Day?
I don't know. There's a lot there. The cherry sounded good. The chocolate thing, Midgey.
Yeah?
Yes.
Well, I mean, would you want to be getting Valentine's gifts from your coworkers?
No, not necessarily.
I'm going to make this as awkward for you as absolutely possible. You're like, oh my God, let me get back to the Bloomberg terminal.
Exactly.
Well, we need to work on this a little bit.
Interesting. Chris McCann, thanks so much for joining us. Get ready for the big day. Chris McCann, President and CEO of 1-800-Flowers.com, Inc., based in Long Island.
And yes, I'm going to make it awkward for you, Paul.
Yes.
Let's keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
Kidding. Carry on. You can cite numbers on the
exactly.
market.
We got Valentine's Day coming up on Friday, and 1-800-Flowers.com will be there. Looking at the market right here, S&P up 18 points. The Dow up over 200 points at 0.7%. NASDAQ up about 0.6% as well. Looking at crude oil, it's been under pressure. We're actually gotten a lift to crude today. We have WTI up about 2.7% to $51.27 per barrel on WTI crude. 10-year Treasuries down 9/30 seconds, 1.63 on your 10-year. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. U.S. stocks are climbing on optimism the global economy can recover from the impact of the coronavirus. The Dow is up 191 points, S&P up 14, NASDAQ climbing 39. The Japanese company that controls 7-Eleven convenience stores here is looking to acquire Speedway gas stations in a bid that would value the business at more than $20 billion. Carlos Ghosn may have escaped custody in Tokyo, but the former Nissan chair is now the focus of a lawsuit brought by the car maker. Nissan says it's looking to recover monetary damages inflicted by Ghosn after years of misconduct and fraud at a price Nissan puts at $91 million. And cruise giant Carnival says the coronavirus outbreak will have an impact on its financial results due to quarantines, travel restrictions, and overall concern. Donna Wilson, Bloomberg Radio.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers. In-depth.
I am a force for good.
I am a force for courage.
And for calm.
I am a force for safety.
For fairness.
For leadership.
I am a force for the future.
For compassion.
For my community.
I am a police officer.
And I am a force for all.
Be one of the 20,000 new police officers and be a force for all that you believe in. Search Join the Police.
It's already chilly in London, and you know that dodgy boiler is on its last legs. So if the thought of no heating makes you break out in a cold sweat, talk to British Gas. You can spread the cost of a new boiler interest-free over 2 years and get £200 off when you get a quote by the 29th of February, or £400 off for existing home care customers. British Gas, here to solve. Search British Gas new boiler. Conditions apply.
The comedian Louis C.K. is on tour now for the first time since his sexual misconduct against other comedians was brought to light. This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, I'll talk with critic Hilton Alls about how Louis C.K. is addressing the issue in his act or not addressing it. And more broadly, we'll talk about when and how a disgraced performer should come back before the public. Listen to this episode of the New Yorker Radio Hour on TuneIn today.
Start hearing more of what you want.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations, live commercial-free news, and every live NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL game.
Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
The 2020 NBA All-Star Game is live on TuneIn Premium. Catch every fast break, fadeaway, and alley-oop as Team LeBron and Team Giannis go head-to-head in Chicago.
Deep three, and in! Oh, man! 5 to shoot, LeBron, long three, good!
Which star will shine the brightest? Who will be named this year's MVP? Find out Sunday at 8 Eastern with ESPN Radio's live coverage of the NBA All-Star Game on TuneIn. Search Premium to upgrade today.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
My name is Hunter Hayes. I know myself and I know my buzzed warning signs. One shot is about knowing my limits or not necessarily knowing my limits.
I start with one shot to have a good time.
One of the signs that I'm starting to feel a little buzz is when I start solving not only my own problems, but the entire world's problems. When I know I'm going out, I know I'm going to start with calling for a ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Business is like a puzzle.
Can you make a call given this swirl of data?
Get all the pieces.
They're getting mixed signals from governments.
He's failed to gain traction.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeart Radio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up here on Bloomberg Markets, we're going to take a look at how the risk-on feel broadly has trickled down into the leveraged loan market, in particular the CLO world. We're going to be speaking with Tom Majewski of Eagle Point Credit Management. Plus, we'll be speaking about politics, the New Hampshire primary, and what Bernie Sanders means for markets. Right now, let's head over to Greg Jarrett for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Well, thank you, Lisa. All three major indices here in the U.S. are up, with the S&P, the Dow Jones, all hitting all-time highs after China's Hubei province reported the lowest number of new virus cases this month and suspected infections on the mainland declined. Gareth McCartney, UBS, tells Bloomberg he's more concerned with looking at central banks than U.S. politics or spreading illness as far as a market effect is concerned.
From the market's perspective, what they're looking at is a very stable environment where the macro growth GDP number looks stable. Inflation is not a threat. And really, as I say, this comes down to Powell and the central bank in the U.S. keeping rates lower for longer. And I think the market sees that as being on hold for now.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P's up 0.6%, up 20. Dow's up 0.7%, up 208. And the Nasdaq's up 0.7%, up 64. The 10-year is down 830 seconds. The yield 1.63%. West Texas Intermediate crude's up 2.6% at $51.24 a barrel, with COMEX gold up 0.1% at $15.7160 an ounce. The dollar yen 110.03, the euro $1.894, and the British pound $1.2976. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
This has been the melt-up market, everything working. Let's take a look at part of the market that we don't talk that much about, collateralized loan obligation, CLO. Nobody better to do that with than Tom Majewski, managing partner and founder of Eagle Point Credit Management with $2.5 billion under management. So, Tom, let's start super basic for me. I'm an equities guy. What is a collateralized loan obligation, and how has that market kind of performed recently?
Sure. Collateralized loan obligations are securitizations or trusts put together that hold pools of loans. These are small pieces of big loans to big American companies, typically first lien and senior secured on all of a company's assets. Some of the representative borrowers in many CLOs would include Dell Computer or American Airlines or Hilton Hotels, large companies that we do business with every day. The loans in CLOs are tracked by something called the Credit Suisse Leveraged Loan Index. This index goes back to the early 1990s.
Not a Bloomberg index for that?
I don't believe there is.
I'll get on that.
I
you
do not.
Shake your head no. I'm going to get on that.
I don't believe there is, actually. A couple of banks have it. The CS Leveraged Loan Index has had positive returns in 26 of the last 28 years. So for a risk asset class, double B and single B rated loans, the performance over the last 25, 30 years has been extraordinary. CLOs put these loans into a securitization structure and allow investors to get exposure either at a senior, middle, or junior part.
There's a fear that these CLOs, they can only hold a certain proportion of CCC rated debt. And there's been an ongoing concern that if we do get a host of downgrades, given the dominance of single B credits, that basically the middle stack of leveraged loans, if they get downgraded, it could cause a wave of forced selling. And this was one aspect of the underperformance at the end of last year of this particular sector of the loan market. We're seeing a huge rebound this year. Why? Why have people stopped caring about this?
Very, very good question. And indeed, single B rated loans fell in price last fall, while double B rated loans rallied. It was an odd bifurcation. And indeed, some of it was due to this technical fear of downgrade to triple Cs. One thing you did say is you cited is actually a very common misperception. There's not a forced sale requirement in CLOs to sell triple Cs. Often people will hear about a 7.5% bucket. There are some adverse consequences to holding over 7.5%, but importantly, CLOs are never forced sellers of loans.
So, Tom, what's the advantage for me as an investor owning a CLO versus maybe just a diversified portfolio of credit,
Sure. You could buy a loan ETF. There are a number of unlevered loan ETFs that offer, hopefully very close to the index in terms of their total performance. The advantage of a CLO, certainly investing in CLOs, and there's a number of public vehicles that investors could select to get that exposure, is they're going to enhance their returns in that CLOs offer some levered exposure to that asset class, but with very, very stable financing.
All right, Tom, you invest in CLOs. You think it's a good asset class. You believe in the structure. A lot of people do. I was speaking with Liebermax's head of CLOs recently, and Liebermax was founded by Greg Lippman, who made his money shorting CDOs and mortgage-related debt heading into 2008, and they're actually buying CLOs now. What's the bear case here, especially for the riskiest tranches of these vehicles? I mean, at this point, this late in the cycle.
Sure. You'd be surprised to know two things about all of the pre-crisis CLOs. First, 96% of them had a positive return to the equity class. But the best vintage of all of the pre-crisis CLOs was 2007. Those CLOs issued on the eve of the credit crisis. And one of the reasons why, which is backwards, most people would think those would be the worst, and that they had many of the worst credits issued in the last credit bubble that occurred. What's different about a CLO versus other forms of securitization, other than credit cards, is that there's a reinvestment period. And people talk about default rates on loans, but the prepayment rate is far more important. Loans prepay very rapidly, and in a CLO, you're taking par dollars that you get paid back on loans. Some loans default, others pay back.
And you can reinvest
cheap when no one else is buying in 2008 and 9.
But what's the difference this time around? People say that CLOs lasted through the last crisis. CDOs didn't. CLOs were backed by loans, corporate loans that had better underwriting. There is a big criticism that underwriting standards have deteriorated dramatically with covenant-light loans and a whole host of other issues recently. Why is this time, are we not going to necessarily see the froth that people are talking about in the loan market come to roost?
I can't say the loan market is not hitting on all cylinders, shall I put it politely at this point. Against that, what I would say is covenant light has fundamentally changed in some negative and some positive ways. What we believe this will do, and what covenant light means, and it sounds a lot like document light, if you want to go back and make a mortgage analogy, it couldn't be farther from the case that they're similar. Covenant light simply means that companies no longer have ongoing financial maintenance covenants in their loans. The entire high-yield bond market, or substantially the entire high-yield bond market, is covenant light and has been since the inception of the market. Loans still have collateral, which bonds do not. Covenant light lets companies have more runway. And in many cases, they have worked it out. A great example would be Weight Watchers. That loan was trading in the 50s a few years ago. They sold 5-10% of the business to Oprah Winfrey. The stock took off, earnings took off, and they repaid a lot of their loan. They would have been a default had they had maintenance covenants. So it's actually helped some companies work their way through it. Now, we also concede it'll be worse for companies that don't work out because they'll probably dig a deeper grave. But in many cases, time can be the best friend of companies, and Covenant Light is allowing them to have that.
Tom Majewski, thank you so much for being with us. Tom Majewski, managing partner of Eagle Point Credit Management, talking about the CLO market, which has been really on a tear so far year to date. Right now, let's head down to our 90 Now in studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager with world and national headlines. Nathan.
Lisa, 2 states down, more than 2,300 delegates to go in the Democratic presidential race. Bloomberg's Kevin Cirilli has some key takeaways from last night's New Hampshire primary.
Bernie Sanders winning, sealing the deal. He's got momentum. He's got the big mo. Secondly, I would say former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg also got some momentum out of this and really jockeying to be the centrist moderate candidate of choice. But finally, there's a new centrist on the scene, and that's Senator Amy Klobuchar. She beat expectations. She pulled a third-place victory, beating not just Senator Elizabeth Warren,